Good afternoon. I recognize that it is 1:30. However, we are still awaiting one more member of our team for quorum. I know they're out in the hallway. I just saw them, so just give us a minute or two and we'll get this show on the road. Good afternoon. I'll be much better. All right, good afternoon and welcome. I call the meeting of the Community Development Human Services Committee to order. I'm Councilmember Jason Dozier. I'm joined by my colleagues to my right, Councilmember Keisha Shawn Waits. To my left, Councilmember Matt Westmoreland, Councilmember Jason Winston, Councilmember Byron Amos. This constitutes a quorum. With that, before we adopt the agenda, I just want to announce for the public some tweaks we're making to the agenda. One is that we have 4 appointees here for various different boards and commissions. 3 of them are here as part of our regular communications. However, we also have 1 walk-in, which is not listed on this agenda, but it is an appointment for the Municipal Market Board of Directors. So all 4 of those individuals are here. We will take up that action before we go into presentation. So I just want y'all to be aware of what's going on there. So with that, I'll move to adopt the agenda. Second by Westmoreland. Please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Aye.
No worries. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No worries. All right, the agenda has been adopted. Let the record reflect 6 yeas, 0 nays. We've been joined by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari, and I heard her aye for the adoption of the agenda. That takes us to the next item, which is the approval of minutes. All move to approve minutes. Second by Bakhtiari. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
All right, minutes have been adopted, 6 yeas, 0 nays. That takes us to public comment. I imagine we have some folks signed up for public comment.
Oh, I have to retreat.
No worries. All right, I have a list of 7 individuals sign up for public comment. Please do me a favor and don't be mad at me if I misread your name. Cursive is not my strong suit. So first speaker, Tim Ball. And just rules of the House, 3 minutes you'll have for public comment, and then I'll try to gently let you know you have 30 seconds left, but it'll be on the board as well. So you're good to
Thanks,
start.
Commissioner. I'm Tim Ball. I live in the 04th Ward. I'm 76 years old, and I play pickleball, and I teach pickleball, and I head up the nonprofit corporation here in Atlanta, which is the Atlanta Pickleball Club, and our commitment is to try to bring pickleball to the city of Atlanta. Our long-term goal is that we want at least 6 or 7 city complexes around the city and parks where we have at least 6 courts, so we can create a pickleball community that folks can either scooter to, ride bicycles to, or walk to. And we know that's a long-term goal. We're all here because we're excited to hear Commissioner Cutler's presentation. And if I could have just a second, everybody that's with pickleball, would they stand up and so that we can see? My guess is that we have at least 10,000 people playing pickleball in the city of Atlanta, if not more. Right now in the city, we have 180 tennis courts. We have not one dedicated pickleball court. Now, we know Commissioner Cutler is going to make some recommendations to you folks, but if we had 50 pickleball courts in Atlanta right now, we could not meet the demand for pickleball. It's not uncommon for us at Piedmont Park on a Friday night to have 70 to 80 people playing pickleball and have 10 tennis players there. This weekend, for example, at Washington Park, Monday night, we had 42 people playing pickleball on Monday night, 2 tennis players. So over the weekend, and I was there 3 of those 4 days, we probably had close to 100 people playing pickleball, and I think all told, we had 6 people playing tennis. So we'd like for you guys to support Commissioner Cutler's presentation and help us even with more funding for pickleball, because we're right now, if we had 50 pickleball courts, we would not have enough pickleball. And why do we all like pickleball so much? It's a community builder. I think if you've seen the people that stood up, and I know virtually every one of them personally, these are people I've met from around the city, and I would not know if it wasn't except for pickleball. So we think that we can build strength and community across the whole city through pickleball, and that's one of our goals as an organization. I know Commissioner Shipman's been out to play with us. Commissioner Winston, you've been out to play, haven't you? Have we had you out, Commissioner Dozier? Why not? The mayor's been out, and I want to tell you, part of our long-term goal, we're going to establish a mayor's cup, and it may be that the commission's got to play the winners of the mayor's cup. So get some practice in. But I teach at Washington Park, especially Saturday afternoons. I'd invite every commissioner to contact me, and let's set up some pickleball lessons. I'm sorry? Well, I can tell you that Commissioner Shipman did pretty good. Yeah, the mayor's pretty doggone athletic, and he doesn't like to lose. That's the one thing we found out about the mayor. It took him about 2 minutes to get really competitive and hit a couple put-away shots that brought a big smile to his face. So the mayor did really, really well. And Commissioner, I think we got a pickleball player there in the making in you.
Thank you, Mr. Ball.
Thank you.
All right. So the person signed up next is actually Carrie Stewart, but I'm sure you're here for the presentation. You don't want to get 3 minutes for public comment. So we'll go to the next portion, our next person, Eileen Pass. Thank you, Ms. Pass. You have 3 minutes.
It's kind of hard to go behind Tim Ball. But I'm here representing not only the Atlanta Pickleball Club, but ALTA and USTA, because I'm a tennis player and a pickleball player. So sometimes when you hear pickleball, you also hear discrepancies or fights between tennis players and pickleball players because we're all kind of wanting to share the same space. I also didn't realize that the comments would come before Commissioner Cutler's presentation, so I don't want to steal his thunder. But I did want to represent the fact that we are very appreciative as a pickleball community of Commissioner Cutler and his approach he's taken to address pickleball within the city. We've been meeting with him several times over the past year. He's been very thoughtful about his approach. I think he's trying to do the best he can for everybody throughout the entire district, which we really appreciate. And we love to see the momentum that's happening. So we do want to publicly say thank you to him for the work he's done. You haven't seen the presentation, but what you are going to see in the presentation, not to take his thunder, is a shared line approach, which means within the community tennis courts, not the tennis centers we're talking about, but the community courts, let's say at Grant Park or at Lennox Wildwood or places like that, a shared approach where you have pickleball lines painted on a tennis court. So you basically have 2 pickleball courts to 1 tennis court. We want to publicly say that we're in very much support of that approach. As a competitive tennis player, it is easy to play on a court that also has pickleball lines painted on it. Basketball players do it all the time with volleyball lines. Football players do it all the time with soccer lines, vice versa. It just becomes part of what you do. There's also junior lines that have been painted on for years that people approach to. So if you have questions about, how do tennis players think about this, the courts that are being talked about are not heavily used for super competitive tennis. Those competitive tennis matches are taking place at the tennis centers, not at the community courts. But I did want to say that as a tennis player, I'm in support of pickleball, dual lines, and also as a pickleball player using tennis courts for that as well. Other than that, I do want to say Tim's approach or commentary about community. I have lived here for 25, 30 years. I've met more people in the past year in the city of Atlanta community playing pickleball than I have doing anything else in the past 30 years. Open play is a concept that's used pretty predominantly in pickleball, which means you just show up at a certain time and you get rotated into the game. You don't need to have 3 other people showing up with you, which I did in my tennis match today. I just show up at 4 o'clock and I know there's going to be 50 people to play with. This community of folks out here, I know just about all of them now. I didn't know them a year ago. So when we talk about bringing the community together, this is one of the best ways to do that. So we thank you for what you've done so far. We hope that you take a lot out of the presentation today. We think it's well done and well thought out, and we're very supportive of the approach being taken.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Henry Jordan. Ms. Jordan, I thought, there you are. Ms. Jordan, you'll have 3 minutes.
Honor to the Spirit of Christ, everyone that's here. Behold, follow not that which is evil, but that which is good. For he that doeth good is of God, but he that doeth evil had not seen God. 3 John, 1st chapter, 11th verse. Salvation is not by works, but it does produce them. To corrupt your neighbor is not the work of Jesus, James Griff. For the enemy has persecuted my soul. He has smitten my soul, my life down to the ground. He has made me to dwell in darkness as those that have been long dead. Psalms 101st, 3rd chapter, 3rd verse. Again, David is beset by enemies. And again, he knows to whom he must turn. Christ will never need our help. He asks us to serve him. For as much as ye know that ye were not redeemed with corruptible things, as silver and gold from your vain conversation, received by tradition from your fathers. 1 Peter 1st chapter 18 verse. The motivation of living our lives in reverence is doctrinal. For as much as you know that ye are not redeemed with corruptible things, we need Jesus' help. Do you realize that you need Christ's help? Neither do they which go by say, the blessing of the Lord be upon you. We bless you in the name of the Lord. Psalms 129 chapter 8 verse. Then he sets forth a prayer for the future. Let God confound the enemies and bless his people. Verses 5 through 8. Make me worthy to receive your blessing, and you also. We need for Christ's help. We living on his time. Our life belongs to Christ. It's what we owe him. I was thinking about working at the new police department, Shot City, I forgot what its name is. But I saw myself, I'm thinking that the Lord wanted there 4 hours a week. That's what I'm thinking. And that I'm supposed to help the homeless is calling on Jesus Christ because they have a gift from Christ that's for the people also. Because all the people's in a big bubble. And they couldn't enjoy the trees or the land of the atmosphere. The Lord said the answer in the homeless is calling on Jesus Christ. Has a business plan to deliver the people out of that situation. So I don't give out the gifts. Christ give out the gifts. I'm just told to tell you about Christ's gifts to be developed in us and what he want to do in us, around us, and in others. Because he has the most power. We need his power to fight Satan, and we can't do it without Jesus.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. All right, our next speaker is James Rawls. And Ms. Rawls, you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Both Tim and Eileen said everything that I was going to say, but my name is James Rawls. I'm a member of the board of directors of the Atlanta Pickleball Club. I'm an ambassador for USA Pickleball, and foremost, I'm an enthusiastic member of Atlanta's growing pickleball community. I want to thank Commissioner Cutler and the Department of Parks and Recreation for the work they've done in helping to integrate pickleball into the city of Atlanta. And I want to thank the committee for listening to the ideas he's going to present to you today. I also would like to invite all of you to come and learn about pickleball. You can reach out to us through our website at atlantapickleball.com, or you can contact me after the meeting and I'll give you my contact information. We'll teach you the rules of the sport, we'll teach you how to play the sport, and you'll quickly learn why it has become one of the most popular forms of exercise. You can come yourself, you can bring your family, you can bring your neighbors, and what you'll discover is a very fun, social environment of a diverse group of people who are there to have fun and be healthy. Thank you.
All right, before we go to our next speaker, I want to acknowledge being joined by Councilmember Antonio Lewis. All right, up next is Coach Emery Clark. Coach Clark. And likewise, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Coach Emery Clark. I teach health and physical education in Fulton County and East Point. I grew up in the city of Atlanta, Cleveland Avenue metropolitan area, and I started teaching pickleball roughly 5 years ago in the South Atlanta area. I started at South Bend Park. It's one tennis court up there, but it's a wall, and it's a great place to practice. And so in 2017, late 2017, I just got my friends to come out and try to learn the game, because I learned it in college about 20 years ago, being a health and physical educator. And I started off having a walking group, and I would walk my walking group to the pickleball court, and they just said, man, let's just stay on the pickleball court. So that's how I began really coaching pickleball, and so I started to get my students involved. And one thing I've learned is that my youngest client has been 6 years old, my oldest client has been 87 years old. And so from 6 to 87, that is a community builder. A funny story, I grew up off Cleveland Avenue Metropolitan, went to Perkinson Elementary School, and one day I had a call to get a group lesson. And so I'm giving the group lesson, and the lady just keep looking at me, keep staring at me. I'm like, why is this lady keep looking at me, staring at me? Then she said, I know you. And she said, she called my brother's name. And I was like, how do you know my brother? And she's like, I taught you. Then I started looking at her, and I was like, Miss McCullough. And she was like, yes, I was your third grade teacher. I was like, oh my God. So it came full circle that my teacher, I came around full circle, and I was able to teach her a lesson. And it's just a blessing to have pickleball in the community. So anybody who hasn't played, I have a 100% comeback rate. Anybody who has come, they have come back. And thanks to Brother Tim and Nancy for getting me involved. By the time I met them, I was in the pickleball business for about 3 or 4 years, and I found it kind of hard to get people to come. So I just started to try to become a B-list pickleball celebrity. And so I worked the social media angle, but guess what, y'all? Retirement people. Tim, do you got an Instagram? Yeah, he just got on Instagram. I told him we got to get your Instagram game up. But pickleball is one of those things that, like I say, builds the community from 6 to 87. We like to use 9 to 99. So anybody who wants to support and get behind pickleball, man, that'd be the best thing for Atlanta community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker is Drew Lupton. And Drew, good to see you, brother. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, committee. My name is Drew Lupton. I've lived in the city of Atlanta for like 15 years now, and I live in Midtown. I've been playing pickleball for about 6 months, and I've met many of these great people, and thanks to Tim and Eileen and James and Coach Clark, I wanted to add on about the aspects of community. And, I was talking to somebody recently, Michelle, and she told me that, through pickleball, she has like 2 close friends, and one is 81 and one is 24. And this is the kind of sport that can really unite people across like demographic lines. And then I also wanted to add some data. And so according to this online resource, Pickleheads, Atlanta has 0.6 dedicated courts per 10,000 residents. And when we compare that to nearby areas like Athens, that's 1.5, or Sandy Springs, that's 2.5, or Savannah, that's 2. And I think that the city of Atlanta can do a lot better in terms of offering dedicated courts on a per capita basis. And so I think, if we don't do this, then we're gonna have our own players and our own citizens traveling to, Sandy Springs to play at Hammond, or traveling to Marietta to play at Shaw. And that's sort of the reality of the players that I'm familiar with, is that they're asking themselves, where do we play? And faced with the options currently, they're sort of saying, hey, I'll meet you outside the city. And so why do we need to have that be the reality? And otherwise, I don't have much to add, but thanks for everyone for being here, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right, our final speaker is Shona Griffin. Shona Griffin? All right, well, Councilmember Lewis.
I want to say that the pickleballers have been heard loud and clear. From the moment I got elected, and I got those emails, those Instagram, I did get some folks from Facebook, not Instagram, they're on Facebook. On Facebook, I knew that it was something. And so Mr. Cutler coming to Atlanta, understanding pickleball, coming from Denver, coming from different places in the Midwest, he told me District 12 can be the pickleball capital of the world. And so I'm all about it. And I feel like you just, Mr. Comeback, I feel like you just recruited a student. And you from Cleveland Avenue like me, I'm from the other side. I'm from down by Jonesboro Road. And so I look forward to meeting you on Jonesboro Road at Southside Park when we turn into what it's supposed to be. And so I'm excited about that.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis.
And one last thing, is there a way we can move the pickleball paper up?
It's not a paper, it's a presentation.
Okay, gotcha. We have legislation too, don't we? What's on the way? We got legislation on the way to change that stadium, to change Southside Park into something else.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. All right, so that concludes public comment. Before we go into presentations, we do have 4 individuals who are here for appointments, and so we'll go ahead and knock out those communications. Ms. Stevens, if you could come to the podium, and Mr. Evans, if you can sound the caption.
Item number 1 is 23C 5069, a communication from Mayor Andre Dickens appointing Ms. Donna Stevens to serve as a member of the Chattahoochee Brick Company Memorial Green Space and Park Board.
All right, Ms. Stevens. I've known you for many years, but if you could indulge the committee why you are interested in this appointment, but also tell us a little bit about yourself so we get to know you a little bit better.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Donna Stevens, and I am maybe one of the few native Atlantans in this room today. Everyone else is saying 30 years, 15 years, but I am born here in Atlanta, and I'm not a Grady baby, sorry. I began the quest for Chattahoochee Brick after watching the documentary one Saturday with my sister, and I didn't know that part of Atlanta history, and it just blew me away. And about a year or two later, I'm in a board meeting with Groundwork Atlanta, and they're talking about Lincoln Terminal had purchased the land and had planned to build this terminal, or fuel terminal on that land, and I just couldn't believe that that was going on. Rolling back my history a little bit, I had become involved with the Proctor Creek Watershed Stewardship Council and a number of other entities here in Atlanta, as well as the EPA and whatnot. And shortly after, I was in the inaugural EJ Academy class with the Environmental Protection Agency. The news rolled out that, everything was going on at Chattahoochee Brick. So it was kind of like, the stars aligned. And that started my quest. I had an interview with WABE, and I just kept telling everybody I could about the atrocities that occurred at Chattahoochee Brick, but also the environmental justice issues that occur. Proctor Creek is one of the most compromised waterways in the United States, as well as the Chattahoochee River. And I just couldn't see the the possibility of the fuels leaking into our waterways, into our soil and our air. NPUG is overwhelmingly overly industrialized with Fulton Industrial, Atlanta Industrial Park, the 285, the Fulton County Airport, truck stops, warehouses, you name it. It's a bit much. So that's been my passion for the last 100 years.
I wanted to make the motion, but that's okay. There's a motion, motion withdrawn. Motion by Dozier to approve, second by Bakhtiari. Any other questions or comments or discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
No questions?
The vote is open.
Okay.
The vote is closed.
All right, the item is approved, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
I do have one question.
Bakhtiari.
Thank you. But Ms. Stevens, so not Grady, right? You said not a Grady baby?
No, I'm
Where
not
were
a
you
Grady.
born?
I was actually born in Bowden, Georgia. My mother was visiting her mother the weekend I was born. I was born on a Sunday morning.
There you go. Okay.
But my dad had already bought a house here in Atlanta and everything.
100 years ago, so it all worked out.
Yeah, 100 years ago.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Thank you for your continued service to the city of Atlanta. All right. Up next, we have Ms. Heather Graybill. If you could come to the podium. Mr. Evans, if you could sound the caption.
Item number 2 is 23C5070, a communication from Ann Phillips, President, Atlanta Planning Advisory Board, submitting the appointment of Ms. Heather Graybill to serve as a member of the Atlanta Beltline Tax Allocation District Advisory Committee. This appointment is for a term of 2 years.
Ms. Graybill, likewise, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in this appointment.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. So my name is Heather Graybill. I am born and raised in Metro Atlanta, have lived in the city of Atlanta since graduating college. I'm a homeowner in Lakewood Heights. I've been serving for the past 2 terms on the NPUI Executive Board, in addition to Lakewood Heights Committee Association, and I am NPUI's APAB alternate. Professionally, my background is in supply chain and logistics. I've worked in freight forwarding and currently work at a supply chain artificial intelligence company. My main driver for wanting to join TADAC is because working in supply chain, I've seen firsthand how infrastructure can change an area for the better and allow communities to have better resources to thrive. As a resident of the South Side, I see the Beltline as one tool to help reconnect our neighborhoods into the greater Atlanta area, and that's something that I'd like to be a part of.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments from colleagues?
As a
Councilman Winston.
proud representative D1, I would like to make a motion to approve.
Motion by Winston, second by
Thank you.
Bakhtiari. Please open the vote.
And the vote is closed.
All right, the motion is approved, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Thank you for your service to the city of Atlanta. All right, I'm gonna need y'all to come with me wherever I go so that I get that clap too. Next item, Mr. Darren Sims, if you could come to the podium. And then, Mr. Evans, please sound the caption.
Item number 3 is 23C5071, a communication from Mayor Andre Dickens appointing Mr. Darren Sims to serve as a member of the Chattahoochee Brick Company Memorial Green Space and Park Board.
Hey, Mr. Sims, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in this appointment.
Absolutely, absolutely. And feel free to call me DJ as well. Darren is super formal, but DJ works fine. And I don't DJ, but it works well. So my name is DJ Sims. I'm the Director of Truth and Transformation Initiative from the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. For the past year, we have been working exclusively on work around Atlanta history. The history with the Chattahoochee Brick site is one we feel is not told enough. One we are working to create education content for, materials for teachers, for students, but also working on what would a collaborative community memorial design process look like with the city of Atlanta, but also with local groups and organizations around Atlanta. And so a lot of the work that we're doing overlies directly with work at Chattahoochee Brick. Personally, myself, I graduated from Fisk University with a major in history and political science. And so deeply understand the need of why history like this needs to not only be discovered, but also taught and given back to the community. And so a lot of the work that we're doing is around that. And so.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from colleagues? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and move approval. Second by Lewis. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Item is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Thank you, Mr. Sims, for your service to the city of Atlanta. All right. I might actually need y'all to come back for the next CDHS meeting because all this positivity is killing me. Next item, like colleagues I mentioned earlier, we do have a walk-in. It is a communication. It's Elms number 32947. It's a communication for Noah Downer. If you could come to the podium, to the Municipal Market Board of Directors. So,
I can sound that too.
Mr. Evans, thank you so much.
This is a resolution by Community Development and Human Services Committee, a resolution appointing Mr. Noah Downer to serve on the Municipal Market Board of Directors for a term of 2 years, scheduled to begin upon the approval of this resolution and for other purposes.
Mr. Downer, I feel like we've seen you before in other contexts, but if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in appointment.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Mr. President. It's great to see everyone. My name is Noah Downer. I'm also an original Atlanta native. So I was born in Grant Park in Piedmont Hospital, but currently a resident of Midtown Atlanta. You may know me through my position at Invest Atlanta as the Senior Vice President of Economic Development, but really excited about this opportunity because it really brings first circle for me what was an experience that I first had at the Curb Market as a student at Georgia State University. So as a double grad, someone that did my undergrad and my grad there, was able to go to the municipal market quite a bit. And so later on in my career to then work here at the City of Atlanta in 2 mayoral administrations and international affairs, really just passionate about having that tangible impact on the growth of my community and excited about the opportunity to work with the various small businesses that make up the municipal market, be able to plug them into all the different resources that we have at Invest Atlanta and of course across the city to see that thriving institution thrive. So that's it.
All right, motion to approve by Westmoreland, second by Bakhtiari. Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Really glad to see that Councilmember Dozier has appointed you to this position. Obviously, the municipal market is in my district. Know that I am a resource for you in every way. I want this market to succeed, as we know with the audit that came out. And then, of course, when we lost our market manager, may she rest in peace. And then, of course, then the correction of said audit. We want everything to go well and for the businesses to feel that they are being taken care of, and know that I am here to help advance that in any way that I can.
Thank you.
Please reach out if you need anything.
I will.
I'm really glad that, well, we're about to take the vote, but I have a feeling it's going to pass with flying colors. So excited to have you on board.
All right, please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
The item is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Thank you, Mr. Downer, for your continued service to the city of Atlanta. All right. It's like a Ted Lasso episode in here. So I guess just recognizing that there are a lot of people here for one of the 3 presentations. While we don't have legislation related to pickleball, if y'all will indulge me, I will like to actually move the pickleball presentation up front so that we can let folks get on with the rest of their day. And then we have a huge room of folks who are here for that particular presentation. So if y'all are okay with that, colleagues, Commissioner Cutler, I saw you in here. There you are.
If we can get a spotlight directly on the commissioner.
A lot of expectation in the room today, right? Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Well, good afternoon, Chair, committee members, and Council President Shipman. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Justin Cutler, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation, and I have the great pleasure of representing the work on behalf of the department, also our tennis team, Luke Burden, Charles Brown, Doug Voss, Adrian, Wright, and many others on the team that have worked tirelessly to come up with a really good plan that represents where pickleball's at in its life cycle, as well as plan for our future. So, if you haven't heard, pickleball is booming, right? Playing pickleball is caught on fire across the country and the sport is booming. Atlanta finds itself really challenged to provide pickleball courts for all of our residents and our neighbors and our visitors that come to our great city and want to play pickleball with each other. I myself started playing pickleball when I was 10. So the sport started in Bainbridge Island, Washington, and a neighbor of ours had a pickleball court in their backyard, and whenever we'd go over there for a barbecue, we'd use the old wooden paddles that said pickleball on them with a green ball. and had a lot of rapping. I remember that, and it was a great sport. Had a lot of fun. Then I didn't play for it for years until it came back around, but it's been a great opportunity to get to know the community as well as support a need in our town as well. But the challenge really, Atlanta doesn't have enough pickleball courts. Residents are interested in taking up the sport. We have new dedicated pickleball courts. They cost roughly $55,000 to $70,000. Converting or using existing courts, including repairs and striping and services, is not as costly. It runs roughly $2,500 to $3,500 to put down new stripes and pressure wash an existing court, as we'll get into here in a minute. But a little bit about the sport. So the sport of pickleball is played on a court that's 20 feet wide by 44 feet long. Has an area called the kitchen, which is this area right here. This bounces off, but it's the area right by the net. It was invented in 1965 on the Bainbridge Island, which is a short ferry ride from Seattle, Washington. It's served diagonally across the net to the opponent's service court using an underhand motion like a tennis or ping pong ball. The ball then is hit and returned back and forth over the net until a player fails to return the ball in accordance with the rules. That's kind of the official scholarly version of how pickleball is played. The image that you see there on your right is the design of an overlay court. This is how we're able to achieve 2 pickleball courts for every single tennis court, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that as well. But this is what we're intending to do as part of our pilot program. When we talk about pickleball overlays, what we're talking about is 2 pickleball courts to 1 tennis court. When we talk about dedicated pickleball, we're talking about a 20 by 44 foot area with 6 to 8 foot buffers around each pickleball court in order to provide a safety zone. Here's another example. This is Hammond Park up in Sandy Springs. As you can see, they originally striped 4 courts of overlay. And one of the things they learned is that by doing 4 courts of overlay, you're going to get a lot of use. And that then inhibits some use by tennis players. It also provides great benefits to pickleball players. And so what I believe that this picture shows really is balance and learning. And I think it's a great example of how a community started out by painting 4 courts, quickly realized that they had a huge need both for tennis and pickleball at this site, and so they modified the court. And I think this is a great compromise where you have 4 pickleball courts, you have 2 dedicated tennis courts, and you're able to meet the needs of all community members at this site. So I know it's a little faded there on the left of this picture, but that's what the overlay looks like at Hammond Park in Sandy Springs. As mentioned earlier, our current assets include 182 tennis courts. 164 of these are City of Atlanta tennis courts. 18 are Atlanta Public Schools tennis courts, and those courts are open or closed to the public based on the desire of the principal at the specific school. So in some instances, they may be open. In other places, they may be closed. It's really at the whim of the principal. We have 0 dedicated pickleball courts. We do have 2 pickleball courts that can be played on paddled tennis courts at Bitsy Grant. And that's a really popular place where people go out and play pickleball. We have 11 painted pickleball overlays, which we'll look at here in a minute. And we also offer tape and drop-down lines at our 5 tennis centers. Those are not as desirable given that when you play out with tape lines, you can often catch your foot on the tape. The tape doesn't adhere all the way. Also tape, depending on the type of tape you're using, it can actually chemically bond to the surface, so it creates unsightly tape marks and unsightly tape residue on the surface. So it's not preferred. And then drop-down lines, just as it says, you drop down a rubberized kind of line, and that can be a trip hazard. So our goal over time is to be able to stripe tennis courts and pickleball courts with these overlays with lines so we don't have either tape residue or trip hazards. We also have 3 pickleball courts indoors, or 3 courts per indoor area, Anderson, Thomasville, and Grant Park. And we've partnered with Atlanta Pickleball Club and PAL at Anderson and Thomasville to provide indoor pickleball lessons for our older adults as part of our Primetime Senior Program. So as mentioned earlier, we've been meeting with the Atlanta Pickleball Club, ALTA, and USTA, both USTA Atlanta as well as USTA Southern, in order to gain input on what guidelines should be as we think about guiding principles for the City of Atlanta. We also met with some neighbors out at McClatchy Park where we've had some conflict related to pickleball use given the close proximity to houses, and I know those representatives are here today. They didn't speak, but I just want to bring their voice into the conversation to say that this is something that we struggled with as we thought about pickleball lines, because we know that there's been cities across the country, in Denver, Philadelphia, where they've had to close pickleball courts because of the proximity to housing due to the noise created by pickleball. So we wanted to be very intentional as we thought about how our guiding principles and how we're setting ourselves up for success So pickleball isn't vilified in our community, but it's embraced, it's loved, and it can flourish in our community. So we've been really pragmatic and tried to learn from best practices across the country. So we've been really intentional about that, and also engaged the professional organizations and the stakeholder groups in that process. So to that point, we recognize that pickleball takes up roughly 20 by 44 foot of area, and we need to be cognizant of that. Also, we need to be cognizant of proximity to housing. So our goal is that no pickleball courts will be located within 150 feet of a home or residential area due to the noise created. One caveat would be is as we look at places, we also look at adjacency to complementary development. So siting pickleball courts in parks along state routes, arterial and collector streets as defined by ADOT. They have a whole list of the different streets from where to where and what classifies as a state route, arterial, or collector street. Also looking at underutilized sites, and we'll show a couple examples of those where we have futsal courts that were developed historically and they aren't utilized now. Soccer in the Streets has developed turf field at stations through a station soccer model, which works better for them. And our futsal courts have gone underutilized or unutilized in many cases. And so we're beginning to repurpose those sites. Also looking at USTA and Alta league play, so making sure that when we cite pickleball, that we're citing pickleball in locations that aren't going to create conflict. So we know we have Alta and USTA league play at Perkison and Frankie Allen Park. And so if we're going to be putting pickleball overlays, we want to make sure that we aren't creating conflict by putting those overlays in certain parks. And so we're looking for areas that also have a good distance to houses, and then we also look at Alta and USTA standards. So for instance, Perkison Park, you're less than 150 feet from the neighbors, so of course we wouldn't put them there, but you're also at a location where there's a high use of Alta and USTA tennis. And so we're trying to find all of these different sites. This matrix has been challenging, but I believe it's going to set us up for success. Also community engagement. So we are going to be launching this pilot, which I'll be going over here in a minute. And our hope is that across 2023 and into 2024, we'll be able to gain insight as to how the communities and the neighbors interact with these sites. What do we learn from pickleball and tennis players and their experience? And so we'll be establishing 2 community meetings on July 12th and July 18th. The first one will be in person at a to-be-determined location, and the second one will be virtual, making it available for everybody. We'll have a facilitator there to facilitate the conversation and help understand what does success look like. So at the end of this pilot program, what is success? How do we define success? And that's what we're asking community to weigh in on. And then we'll have a check-in meeting in February 2024, and then a wrap-up meeting in July 2024 to share what we learned along the way. Also, we recognize that cost is an issue, right? We can't build our way out of this immediately. We recognize that over 150 years that Atlanta's been around, that's allowed us to build 164 tennis courts. And so day one, we aren't going to have 164 pickleball courts, but through this process, we know that we can build enough pickleball courts to meet the needs currently as well as into the future, and also grow with tennis and pickleball over the long term. As we get into the pickleball side, I just want to recognize a pickleball pilot. I just want to call out that we aren't identifying any pickleball changes at our tennis centers, given that we're currently in our request for proposal evaluation process right now. We didn't want to make any determinations or put upon the contractor any kind of draft proposals until we were able to select the proposal, select the contractor, and then we'll work with them to identify what does pickleball look like at our 5 tennis centers. So that's to be determined in the near future, but we're currently evaluating who the contractor will be to operate our 5 tennis centers. So let's dive in. So we took a council district approach, recognizing that we wanted to provide opportunity for as many people across a broad geographic area as possible. So we used council district as our map, and we put together this chart that highlights where we currently have each count by council district on the left side, the park name, the number of dedicated tennis courts that currently exist at that location, the number of dedicated tennis courts and dedicated pickleball courts that will exist after the pilot is implemented, and then the number of shared courts that will exist. And so it reads left to right. So for instance, at Grant Park, we know we have 4 dedicated tennis courts. With the implementation of pickleball overlays, we'll have 1 dedicated tennis court, we'll have 3 shared courts, and that'll provide 6 pickleball courts at Grant Park. And it goes down the list to a South Bend, Phoenix 2, which we'll get into here in a minute. The community has come out in support of that site, and they actually applied for a Park Pride grant. And so we're working with the community to implement 2 dedicated pickleball courts there. Similarly, at Central Park, Councilmember Faroukri has sponsored through his T-SPLOST allocations the installation of 2 pickleball courts, and the department will be installing 2 permanent courts. And then in the next council set, you see additional 4 dedicated pickleball courts at Adams Park, which is, and this isn't on the current tennis courts, it's actually on the futsal courts, which are immediately adjacent to the library and right along Campbellton Road, as well as 6 dedicated pickleball courts at Southside Park, where we currently have 2 futsal courts, and we'll be repurposing those with lights for 6 pickleball courts. So as you can see, we're going from 0 dedicated courts to 14 dedicated courts, and from 11 shared courts to 33 dedicated courts. So that's a 300% increase and 140% increase, or 1,400% increase on the dedicated courts. So we're really making a first step into pickleball as part of this pilot. The timing of this will be dictated by our ability to, we're working on printing signs and numbering so that when users come out to the courts, they're able to reserve the pickleball courts or the tennis court, whatever they choose online, and they'll be able to have a permit when they're out there using the court, so there's no confusion as to whose court it is. But also people will be free to just drop in and play as well. One of the big things that we're asking too is that just for kind of decorum and just general friendliness, typically with tennis, if you're playing a match, the match can last an hour to an hour and a half, and then you're done, and then another group comes on. Pickleball, because you're cycling every 20 minutes with the matches, it could go very quickly, and sometimes courts can be encumbered for up to several hours. And so we're working with the pickleball community and the tennis community to identify how can we work together to make sure that everybody has access to the court, whether you're there to play tennis or whether you're there to play pickleball. Here's a map showing where the courts will be. So the courts in black will be existing pickleball courts. So as you can see, we have some existing pickleball courts already at Peachtree Hills, Lenox Wildwood, Isabel Webster Gates Park. Then the proposed pickleball overlay sites are the purple paddle, and those are spread throughout our community as well. And then the proposed dedicated sites are in red, and they are in 4 locations in our community, with hopefully more in the near future. Here's some examples of some of the proposed sites. So the pickleball court, unfortunately the pointer's not working. It'll go where the basketball court that looks woefully underpainted to the north of the really pretty basketball court. It'll be in that area where we'll have the 2 pickleball courts. And this again was applied for by the neighborhood group. Here's where the south side sports complex is, and the pickleball courts will go on the futsal courts, which is immediately south of the dirt pile where you can see the 2 blue half circles. So that's where 6 courts will be. Peachtree Hills is an example of our current overlay courts, so we'll maintain the overlays as part of the pilot. Adams Park, again, adjacent to the library, not adjacent to homes, adjacent to a busy road. And this is a futsal court where we'll be able to install 4 dedicated pickleball courts as well. And then Grant Park, last but not least, we'll be installing 6 overlays, and the 6 overlays will go on the courts to the right or to the north. And this is after consultation with Atlanta Pickleball and Alta Tennis that said, hey, if we're going to be playing tennis, we want to be farthest away from the gate so we don't have a lot of people walking past us playing tennis. So tennis will be on the left side, pickleball will be on the 3 right courts. That will allow us to provide a dedicated tennis court as well as 3 overlay courts for the enjoyment of the community. This site, is also a good site because it's far away from neighbors. It has ample parking. There's a community center adjacent to it that has a bathroom. And Councilmember Winston, I know you are excited about installing a bathroom there and sponsored some legislation for that as well. And this may be a good site for that bathroom to occur as well, but we'll be following up on that. So some next steps. Like I said earlier, we'll be conducting 2 public meetings, July 12th and July 18th. We'll begin the pilot program. We anticipate Southside Sports Complex being done sometime in August. We're working on installing signage, numbering, and overlays throughout the summer, so they're ready by fall when it's cooler outside, so people are ready to play pickleball. The numbers and the signage are really important so people know, again, what court they're reserving and how to go about reserving that. And we'll talk about that at the July 12th and July 18th meeting. We'll give a demonstration of where to go. Currently, you go to iParks and you can reserve a tennis court right now. And I think many people in the room have reserved Lenox Wildwood or reserved Peachtree Hills through that system. So that's available to the community to do now. So I'd encourage everybody in the room to get an account if you don't have one. And then some support needed from the tennis and pickleball groups. Again, sharing the guiding principles, helping to educate the different constituency groups, promoting the pilot program and options and opportunities, participate in public meetings, use the feedback platforms that we'll have, a survey link and an email address. Also promote a reservation system for orderly sharing of the courts so people know who should be out there and bring your permit with you. and then also encourage court etiquette and enforce fair play, and then assist in fundraising for future development of pickleball courts. And we'll be able to do more together. So thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Cutler. Before I open the floor to colleagues, just my first point is a comment, and just say thank you to you and your team for being thoughtful, being meticulous, talking with all the different stakeholders in this work, and trying to make sure that the city can do what it can to accommodate, was it the fastest growing sport in America, as the pickleball community likes to share with us. I also want to just commend y'all for also being thoughtful about addressing residential neighbors' concerns with regards to noise, in regards to the traffic and things like that. And so I just want to commend you and your team for really leaning in, digging in, and making this happen. My question for you, after we had our quick call earlier in the week or last week or whenever it was, time is soup, I spoke with the Mosley Park community about, hey, here's, just so you know, this is a proposal that's going to be happening. Just want to get your thoughts. And they love the idea, including our tennis playing residents. The one concern that they had was, is there an opportunity for resurfacing as part of this larger pilot program, recognizing, at least in Mosley Park, those tennis courts, per the community, could use some additional love and attention, especially since at least one of the courts that's there is whenever there's a big rain event, there's some standing water issues that they've been experiencing that has deteriorated the course over time. So something that just to raise to you.
Yeah, we can address that.
But that was the one. And I asked them also to participate in the public meeting to ask y'all again, but while it's top of mind for me, wanted to make sure that was on your radar.
Thank you.
All right. With that being said, Councilman Winston.
Thank you, Chair Dozier. Thank you, Commissioner Cutler. I just wanted to add one point also about Grant Park, in that we recently passed funding for lighting at the court as well, to be able to extend the playtime for both tennis and pickleball. So I just want to also just point that out. And that's in addition to the new restroom as well that we'll be figuring out in that area. So, but thank you for your thoughtfulness and your team's hard work on this. And I know that we've been having this conversation for over a year. And so I'm glad to kind of see things kind of get going. So thank you all again.
Thank you.
All right. I just want to point out, I did not get any claps when I made my comments. Councilman Westmoreland.
I wanted to clap, but.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions, just two comments, since the room will probably clear out here in a second. One is, I've been an elected official for 9.5 years, and this is the warmest public comment and public engagement I've ever experienced. Second, it hasn't been as discussed as it should have been, but as part of the budget that we adopted last Tuesday, we doubled the park improvement fund, since it's clear everyone in this room cares a lot about parks and green space. It's going to lead to $16 million new a year for capital projects and maintenance. And it's a testament to the dedication that council has to that work, but also to the faith we have in your leadership. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody in the room knows that, and go and tell all your neighbors about it, because there's going to be significantly more resources to do all of this and a lot more in the years ahead.
Hey, Councilman Westmoreland. Councilman Lewis.
I just want to say thank you to Commissioner Cutler and his staff for the dedication for putting together this packet. You explained this to me yesterday. You've been making sure to tell me what pickleball is over this past year and a half, and now I got somebody who sound like me told me he plays it, right? And so I can get some lessons from someone too. So I appreciate you for actually the dedication to pickleball in our city. And so the improvements that my colleagues just talked about, and what we're about to do with this, I can't wait to get good, at least at pickleball, so I can compete. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Councilman Lewis. Councilman Bakhtiari.
Yes, so just so you all know, I'm in full support of Commissioner Cutler's recommendations. I think my district would flail me if I wasn't. And so I am looking forward to actually playing a game of pickleball. I'm thinking about challenging you, except this time I don't want to be deceived into thinking we're just doing a walkthrough in a park. We did basketball earlier, and he was in actual athletic gear, and I was in a suit. So
I think I actually had the same shoes I have on now, which are some semi-dress.
So I will challenge you, and I'm happy to hear about tennis because I grew up playing tennis competitively. So glad to hear that those skills may transfer over. So I'm very excited about the recommendations and about seeing more of our courts used, not just for tennis, but for pickleball as well. And we'll get this done, but also happy about the additional resources that will be going towards our park spaces for this. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Bakhtiari. Council President Shipman.
Commissioner Cutler, thanks for your good work here. Just a couple of quick questions. One, on Central Park, it says that there aren't dedicated tennis courts, but I think there are tennis courts at Central. Are these in
Correct.
addition to
There's 4.
those?
It would
Right.
be in addition to that, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one of the challenges with Central and much of Atlanta is that it's hilly. And also with Central, we have numerous concerts and gated park events at Central Park. And so needing to preserve the opportunity for those types of events. And so we're looking at replacing the playground and improving the playground, as well as there's a lower spot kind of by the basketball court. So it may be 2 areas. They may not be able to be 4 together. So that one's going to take a little longer, but we are working to figure that out. So
That makes sense. Just a question on nets. Are nets going to be installed on the permanent ones and not on the shared, I assume, or how is that going to work?
correct. So the nets will be installed on the permanent ones. The shared ones, depending on their adjacency to a community center or some type of community building, we're considering a rental program where you could rent a net to reduce the barriers to play, where you could rent a net by leaving us your keys, your driver's license at the community center, and then you can take the net and play pickleball. Many pickleball players already have their own nets. You know, they play at home, they play in a parking lot, they play, you know, down the street because they're used to overlays. So many people in this room, I would imagine, have a net at home. And so I think there's opportunity there for the community to support that, and that's something that we don't have to provide in that case.
That's great. The last thing I would say is, given the infrastructure that we're piloting, it's probably worth, if you haven't already, or maybe if you have, you can speak to it, engaging with APS to see how we can maybe engage with their physical education programs to engage some young people, especially where there are close adjacencies.
Yep, great idea.
Good. Well, I'm excited. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council President. Any other questions, comments from colleagues? Seeing none, thank you, Commissioner
Great,
Cutler.
thank you.
I'm for real, I need y'all to come to all my meetings. All right, next on the agenda, we have Carrie Stewart with the Atlanta Fulton County Recreation Authority for your quarterly update. Good to see you, Mr. Stewart.
Hello, City Council members. So what I want to do is give you an update on a few initiatives that I think is a cross-section of your interest. And at the end, you all ask me any specific questions you have. First of all, Stadium Neighborhood Trust Fund. I am the funding agent for that. It was initially $5 million fund. It is down to, as of May 31st, down to $652,000. And it has an additional $572,000 of commitments still outstanding. So that fund is coming down to an end, and we're probably just a few months away from closing that out. I have scheduled a meeting with the program manager so we can plan that out so that the closeout goes smoothly. Secondly is our annual community investment. We put away 1% today. I'm trying to increase that to 2%. And we invested into the community in areas such as nonprofits in sports and recreation and park-related initiatives. So that was $172,000 that we have a fund for this year. And we're down to only $62,000 remaining to invest. And one of the recent initiatives was the hosting of the Southwest Atlantic Conference Baseball Championship at Georgia Tech. It was a huge success. 8 teams competed from that conference here. We invited many of the youth programs out to see the game, and it was a huge success, and that's a 3-year commitment, so they have 2 more years left on that. The next one is the Centennial Park parking deck transaction. That is land we have next to State Farm Marina that's going to be sold to CIM. And we are maybe 3 or 4 weeks away from closing that out. We had one hiccup that I'm working on this week to close out. Once that's done, we should be able to close in 3 or 4 weeks. Once that closes, that transaction will release a triangle. We call it the triangle, but it's a portion that will help the 143 Alabama project close out. They need that triangle, which is equivalent to 23 parking spaces, in order for them to move forward with their transaction. So those two should happen simultaneously within 3 to 4 weeks. And Johnny White Golf Course, we're going to redo that pro shop and include a senior center. So the funding for that is also coming and tied to the Centennial Parking Deck transaction. And we're going to move forward with meetings with the community, the senior community this summer, so we actually make sure that our final plan will incorporate their wishes. So I'm in the midst of signing that contract with the architecture and community engagement firm now. So hopefully we can finish that by late July or August and move forward towards the actually building of it. Nextly is the Grand Park parking facility that I oversee, not only the zoo parking, but also Gateway Parking Deck. Year to date through May, that gave $334,000 to the city of Atlanta, $90,000 to Grant Park Conservancy. So that's just a quick overview of some of the initiatives, but you all are free to ask me specific questions on anything else.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Before I give my colleagues an opportunity to ask questions, I had a few that I just wanted to get your thoughts about. One is I've been speaking with the Atlanta Hawks and with State Farm Arena about opportunities to expand bicycle infrastructure at the stadium. One of the things that comes up a lot, especially when I go to Atlanta United matches, I bike with my 2-year-old, and it's always a great experience to be able to go drop our bike off for free, have someone watch it for 2 hours, and go about our business. Bike to a Hawks game like 3 months ago, had to attach the bike to a police barricade because there wasn't anywhere to park the bike, and just thinking about where there's some opportunities to be even more multimodal, just having an initial conversation. So I just want you to be aware of that because we want to try to expand our cycling infrastructure where we can. But I'm just, as we think about some of the other buildings in y'all's portfolio, whether it's Fanplex, whether it's the senior center over at John A. White Park, I'm just curious if y'all are thinking about how to incorporate those sorts of larger facilities projects with connection to transit, connection to walkability and biking and those sorts of things to try to, I think about we're a recreation authority, and I know that is a big umbrella, but just how do we promote an active city in that work? Can you unpack that a little bit?
I can definitely start to think about biking. And I know like the senior center is being designed in concert with the Department of Parking and Rec. So Commissioner Cutler has the staff and the knowledge and with that background to help us tie all those things in that facility. I know the Gateway Parking Deck was designed, I know it has plenty of biking connections, and it was designed with walkability in mind. So I just have to keep that in mind and keep me informed on your conversation with State Farm Arena. I don't think we took that into consideration, not biking, in that renovation. But most of that most recent renovation, the $200 million renovation was internal more so than external. So if you keep me involved in those conversations, I can make sure that it gets done.
Yeah, absolutely. And just thinking about too, with a lot of bigger transportation projects that we have across the city, one that comes to mind more prominently is the $30 million in federal funding that we have. Most of it's in District 4 for the Safe Streets for All to redo Central and Pryor Street. And I know we've talked about the Africa-owned parking lots, the old gray lot and the old orange lot. I know there's still a multi-year lease with the Universal Circus and with the Atlanta Fair. But as we think about kind of the next generation of what those parcels could potentially be, if we're about to spend $40 million of money, $30 million is federally funded, think about opportunity for redevelopment, I think is something that we need to maybe start having those initial conversations. So just, it's more of a comment than a question, but if you have any thoughts or reactions to that, I'd be curious to hear, just recognize the amount of money we're about to spend on those two corridors. I imagine road diets and bike lanes and all these sorts of things will be contemplated as part of that development, but is once a year circus that lasts 3 to 4 weeks, the best use of those parcels. I know we have some conversations with Fulton County about jury duty parking and employee parking, but just thinking through where there's some spaces that we're leasing, I'm just wondering where there might be some opportunity for redevelopment, and don't know if you have any thoughts about that sort of thing on your end.
We took a holistic look at all of those lots, and we did a study on which lots could be redeveloped. We talked to our partners at Georgia State, we talked to our partners at Fulton County, and we had some early conversations with the state of Atlanta. And so we're in very early stages of trying to figure out who's going to develop what, and we have first right of refusals on some of the lots. So I have to combine all these entities to figure that out. But I will make sure we keep in mind as far as walkability and bikes and when we are developing it. As far as the gray lot, I know Georgia State has an interest of keeping it as parking because they do have the stadium there. And we do also still need the place for the, like you said, Soul Circus and the fair. So I'm not sure whether that one will be, it definitely won't be one of the first ones developed. Probably more like the Brown lot up going north towards Georgia State, or maybe even Fanplex. And Media lot will probably go to Georgia State.
And definitely want to continue those conversations.
Sure.
I had a great conversation led by Councilman Bakhtiari yesterday about work that the city is looking to lean into around mitigating the heat island effect and just thinking about ways that we can invest in, whether we through subsidy or through partnerships with private developers to address all these big old parking lots that we have all over South Downtown, all over Mechanicsville and Summerhill. And I think we're moving in the right direction, but just recognizing where there's alignment with, like I said, with the Safe Streets for All funding for Central and Pryor, or where there's a big demand, unmet demand for affordable housing in the city. Just how do we align all those where there's available? It's not all city land, but public land, and making sure that we make sure it's the highest and best use. So happy to continue those conversations, but something that's top of mind for me and for my constituents. And then just with regards to Johnny White Golf Course, do y'all have an expected, I know y'all in the early conversations about what that could look like. Do y'all have an expected delivery date in terms of when programming will be available at the currently unbuilt facility that they all looking at putting in place?
My best guess at this point would be 24 months from this fall.
From this fall? Right. So if I start letting my seniors off of Cascade know that it's coming, y'all aren't gonna be mad at me, are you?
No, we're gonna have those meetings this summer, so.
Okay, perfect. And then my last question, just going back to the connection to transportation theme. This is in Councilman Winston's district, but something that I think a lot about because just my work with the Turnerfield Community Benefits Coalition and my former organizing days. But Fanplex has kind of been, people are always want to know what's the next iteration of Fanplex. When we think about the Summerhill BRT that us and the mayor were at the groundbreaking for, we're going to have high frequency transit along the Hank Aaron corridor, and that building is, I know it's been open before as a community space, as a temporary community space. I know it's there as a polling place, but any sort of insights you can share as far as the future of Fanplex that we can take back to our communities?
The long-term goals for Fanplex is converted to multifamily affordable housing.
Do you have any idea of how many units you're all looking at getting in that?
The study that came back said it can accommodate with no zoning variances, roughly 225 to 250 units.
Okay. And then is that going to be demo the building as it exists and then building new?
That would demo the building as it exists and build something similar to what's being built right next.
Okay, that's awesome. And just my only comment on that is just recognizing I'm gonna say historic use. I know it was originally a recreation use and then it's been used as a community space, but the fact that it's currently a polling place, just whatever considerations can be made from a use standpoint to allow for some sort of continuance of that in the future iteration. I think it might be worth taking back and considering as y'all are getting to the next phase of design for that. So
correct. The early discussions would be make sure it has some community space component to it.
All right, thank you. That was a lot. Thank you for the lightning round answers. Councilmember Lewis.
Sure.
Hey, I want to say thank you for coming today. A couple of comments and then question. And so the SWAC, is that the championship you were talking about?
Yes.
I want to say I appreciate you for that. That partnership is a beautiful partnership. I went to HBCU, so to see the teams come and play in the city of Atlanta, they were happy to be here. And so I think this 3-year tournament is going to turn into the HBCU championship, the SWAC championship always being here in the city. We're
working on it.
Double excited and hopeful with Mr. Cutler in the room that we can actually get Southside Park to turn into Hank Aaron Baseball Academy so that the HBCUs can play at a HBCU field. Right. And so we know we need Fulton County. We're going to need our partners' help on that fully. So I'm hopeful that we can start those conversations and include who we need to get that done, get that going. The Lot C, I hope I'm right on that. Lot C is a lot that we've needed. The only way, as a child of Atlanta, the only way I ever go to a fair, the only way I ever go to Universal Circus ever in my life is Lot C.
We call it the gray lot, yeah.
That's the gray lot.
Right.
So I feel good by hearing you say that would be the last one you would sell if you ever sell one. The lot behind 656 and Tom, Dick, and Hank that folk park at, we need that parking for folks who work in that Fulton County building downtown as well. So I hope we can remember the historical. There are some that you aren't using over there. It look like they're not being used at all ever. But I would say I appreciate you for having for thinking about those two lots throughout, because you brought up the circus and you brought up other things. I appreciate you for that. The bike lanes. I need bike lanes in front of libraries. Cleveland Avenue Library. I don't know. So that's not just one council member who's thinking about bike lanes as we grow. I rode a scooter in today. And so I ride my scooter down Pryor Road every single day to get to work. So please start thinking about bike lanes as you go. The library on Pryor Road and the library on Cleveland Avenue, both, I ride past them. So think about those as you grow. Lastly, the tickets that we got to the baseball championships were amazing. Mr. Keefe, who sent them to us, who reached out to us, I'm happy that they were able to get us that information. I would say my kids in our city, they've become soccer fans. When I grew up, we used to get tickets to Braves games. My kids ain't been to those games. We need the connection to come back somehow, some way, to where we can use these partnerships for State Farm Arena and for the stadiums that were built with taxpayer dollars, with help from taxpayers, so our kids can walk back into them. So I'm so happy about those tickets that we got when we were able to bring those teams down to see those games.
Right.
They want to see that soccer team. They want to see the Falcons. So I appreciate you if you think about that as we move forward.
I oversee the State Farm relationship, but I don't oversee Mercedes-Benz and Falcons relationship, so I can help you out with.
We got the right people in the room. We got you and Mr. Cutler. I think this council passed legislation a year ago when I got on council to say that the relationship with the Falcons, Hawks needs to be like the relationship with the Braves, where they pay for baseball equipment in the summer. It needs to be like that relationship, a strong one. These are the teams that are in our city. And so with the right people in the room, I just want to enter that into the conversation. We're having these conversations with the Hawks, say, we got some kids that want to come see Trae Young. And it's a real thing to me, because the way I was able to see Michael Vick play growing up was tickets to preseason games, even if we can look at preseason games again. So I appreciate you if you can think about preseason Hawks games or for young folk.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lewis, any other questions, comments from colleagues? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stuart, and we'll see you not next quarter, but next presentation, whenever that is.
Appreciate it.
But we'll be in touch, obviously.
All right.
All right. All right, that takes us to our next presentation, the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau. We have William Pate. are you both you and Mark presenting, Mr.?
Yes,
Okay, and then just for the public's awareness, this is actually the first time we've had the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau present before this body, at least in this capacity, on a suggestion by Council President Shipman, and I agreed wholeheartedly. So we're glad we got you here before us, and I know the presentation is when we had our departmental reports, it's like a 50-page slide deck. I know it's not that.
No,
but I
it ain't gonna be
imagine we'll have some questions for you, I
Sure,
imagine.
absolutely,
So
yeah.
thank you, and the floor is yours.
Absolutely, thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, council members, we do really appreciate the opportunity to bring you an update on the hospitality industry, which, as you know, is one of the largest industries, economic drivers in the city and the metro area, as well as one of the largest employers in the city and the metro area. So we thought what we would do today is, first off, Mark's going to come up and talk to you a little bit about the business, give you a level set on where we are post-COVID, and so kind of give you an idea of just how the business is going. I know you have some specific questions, particularly around the World Cup, and so I'm going to come up after that, give you a kind of an overview of the World Cup, and then we'll take all the questions that you want. Okay? Mark?
Thank you, William. Thank you all, Chairman, President Shipman, and council members. Great to be with you all. As William said, I'm going to walk you through kind of where we are right now, where we were, and then we'll go through there. But I think you all know what our mission is. Really, we like to say it's pretty simple: get more people here today than they were here yesterday. That will drive a good economic impact around the city and the state. And then our vision to be the most hospitable convention city in the United States. It's easy to do business with. And I think one thing our customers tell you on a meeting and convention standpoint is when we look at Atlanta, Atlanta can get things done and get things done quickly. And our community between the pillars, the hotel, the Congress Center, and the Bureau work very well together so that we can do that. So kind of looking at before the pandemic, you might remember in 2019, we had a little game called the Super Bowl in town. And that was one of the best years we've ever had in the city of Atlanta. 305,000 jobs metro-wide, 57 million visitors, 16 billion in visitor spending. And then looking back where we ended last year, 290,000 jobs, 48.5 million visitors, and 18 billion in spending. So I would tell you things are looking bright for our industry, and I'll show you down the road here, you'll see that the future looks pretty doggone good for Atlanta. Hotel occupancy drives certainly our economic engine and a lot of engines around the city. So, and when we report out, we report out on what we call the tax district, and that's our economic engine, downtown, midtown, Buckhead. And as you can see, downtown, midtown, Buckhead, all right around 60% last year. In hotel occupancy, to kind of put that in perspective, this year we're at 65% year to date, so we're moving forward. Last year we ended right at 57.5, but with strong performance on the convention side, and the 6 big convention hotels this year are really driving that. And as I said, in 2019, 74% there for which was the highest hotel occupancy in the city of Atlanta has ever had. We continue to get good praises here. Money Magazine listed us one of the best places to live in the United States. I don't know if you saw Bankrate.com yesterday came out with Atlanta's one of the 9th best place to start a career out of 50 cities. So things like this create good destination appeal for our customers. Best in Travel by Lonely Planet in 22, and then the National Geographic gave us Best of the World in 2022. So people are talking about Atlanta and talking about really good things too. I tend to stay on the big convention side, lead a group of 18 people that go out and sell and market Atlanta to the convention trade. And we're really excited about what's going on at the Congress Center, the beautification, the upgrades that have taken place primarily during the pandemic. They didn't stop over there and everything they've done has the, the overall customer experience in mind there. Highlighted by the new 975 Hilton Signia that'll open up in January, soft opening in December, 975 guest rooms over 75,000 square feet of meeting space that they have, but they're going to connect right to the Georgia Ballroom there at the convention center. So really looking forward to that. Our customers are telling us we were a little under indexed competitive-wise around the country, and having now the Omni and the Hilton connected to the Congress Center is going to give us a good competitive advantage and then put us in line with many of our competitors there. So I talked about looking forward in the future. So one of the things, William and I started about the same time at the Bureau, that we always had these peaks and valleys. In my time with Marriott Hotels here in Atlanta, you'd have a good year one year, you'd have a bad year next year. And I felt very strongly that we need to figure out a way to stabilize the market. And looking at 20 major citywides a year in the city is a way to really measure how we're doing there. Our long-term run average was 14. We're consistently doing 18 to 22 regularly now. And if you see next year in 2024, we're up over 20 to 21, and we're dropping a little bit in 25. But the blue numbers there are really the tentative business we have in the outer years. The mauve color business, or we call annual repeat annuals, or people we have signed to a long-term agreement in Atlanta. And so the woodworking show, or poultry and egg, cheer sport, and then some other ones that rotate in here, maybe on every other year or every third or fourth year. We don't claim them really definite until 3 years prior to arrival. So that's why you would see that. But for all intents and purposes, the red and the mauve, there are definite opportunities for us in Atlanta. Couple of things I wanted to bring to your attention that we have coming up here that are really important to us. And American Society of Associations will hold their annual meeting here in August this year, August 5th through 8th. The association business is extremely important to us. We're a little overweighted there, and overweighted by design, I would say. 60% of our business in the city of Atlanta comes from associations. And we like that because associations, by their bylaws, have to have a meeting. We love the corporate stuff, but the corporate stuff cancels, especially if they're booked further out and then the economy turns. And so this is a really good insurance policy for us going forward. And we fully expect to walk away with definite business during this. We last held them in 2013, and it was a great opportunity for us, and the city certainly changed in the 10 years since they've been here. And they were getting into the Global Business Travel Association for 2 years. We haven't done this since I've been at the Bureau, but it's an important segment to us. Business travel is an important segment to Atlanta, and many of the people that support that, certainly Delta and the other major hotels that are here in Atlanta. So a couple of those things that will put us out in front of the industry there. And then our future sporting events, the college football championship in 25. We're going to talk about FIFA here in a little bit. And then we are looking at a couple of bids that are one with a future Super Bowl, and then the NBA All-Star game as well. So be on the lookout for more on that. Looking ahead, I think, our lead volume on the meeting and convention side has never been better, actually. And a lot of that has to do with people are sourcing more There's more sourcing more destinations, so where they might have looked at 5 destinations in the past, now they're throwing 10 in there. And so, our speed to market and how we communicate and position Atlanta has never been as important as it is right now. And then our future, as I talked about on the convention side, looks very, very strong as we go forward too. So I tell you, we've got a really good insurance policy going forward. One of the areas where we've lagged in post recovery is on the international side. There are bits and pockets of that are coming back right now, but it depends, depending on the group. And I'll give you an example. The IPPE show, Poultry and Egg, meets here every January, has a very heavy concentration of attendees from Latin America. And that area has come back. Certain pockets of Europe and Asia are not as quick to come back. So our medical meetings are lagging on the attendance side, primarily due to the international travel that they've experienced before. We just did another deal in Washington last week with American Urological Association. When they were here last time in 2012, 50% of their attendees came from international. So we're not getting them until 2031. We got time to let them catch up a little bit here. But it is coming back, but it's not as robust as it once was. Okay? And I'll let William talk, and then we'll take some questions. Thank you all.
So let me just kind of give you all a little bit overview of the World Cup. First off, this is a tremendous opportunity. Really, the biggest opportunity for the city since the Olympics. And let me tell you a little bit about how this gets organized and how it gets executed. So Dan Corso, who runs the Sports Council, is kind of, if you will, at the head of the table. He manages the bids. So when FIFA or when U.S. Soccer reaches out to us about running an event like that, Dan sort of is the quarterback. And so he turns to us to help on venues and hotels, customer experience. He turns to, in this case, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the stadium to handle that portion, the Georgia World Congress Center for sort of the fan activities and things like that. And so in the early portions, we're around the table sort of planning, can we fit this in? Does it make financial sense? Is it something we want to do? And then as we move forward, and once FIFA makes their announcements about the games, we'll then have an organizing committee. And so we bring in members of the city, we bring in members of the state, obviously the security people. Everybody is going to have a piece in the execution part so that we make sure that we don't leave any stone unturned. We've been doing a lot of big events for a long time. So the good news is we have some really good momentum on this. And our security teams from city, county, state, Homeland Security are so well tied together. And that's, of course, always one of your biggest concerns. And those folks have a lot of experience and really work well together. This is, as I said, the largest event in the world, bigger than the Olympics. And so a great opportunity for us because a lot of the people who are going to be coming here are going to be from international destinations. So it's a great opportunity for us to raise our international profile for businesses that are interested in international business. It'd be a great opportunity for them to meet with international business people as they're here in town. I will tell you that if you think about, for those of you around in the Olympics, we had a 5-year runway. You remember that was announced in 91, and we had the Olympics in 96. We are going to end up being less than 3 years out from the World Cup. The expectation is FIFA is going to make announcements here in the fall on how many games we're going to get and what the dates will be. And until we get that, to be honest, we're kind of a little bit on hold. It's hard to really get into the detailed planning. We've got the hotels held. We've got all the venues held. And so regardless of the dates, we'll be ready. But as you can imagine, once we get those filled in, then there's other business that we can begin to book around. So we're all waiting to hear, when FIFA comes out with the specifics. I guess your question really, to me, at the end of the day, is what are you worried about or what are you thinking about? And some of the things I would probably put on this committee's thought pattern are, again, if you remember the Olympics, we had some major infrastructure programs that we did across the city. In fact, I was walking the other day, it reminded me, if you walk down Peachtree Street and you look down, you see the grates all around the trees. They're all they were developed by ACOG, paid for by ACOG, and installed. And so one of the questions I think we need to ask as we get into these final 3 years to the run-up is, do we feel infrastructure-wise we're as prepared as we want to be to show off the city? Do we want to repave the streets downtown? Do we want to fix the sidewalks? I know we've got a lighting program around the entire city. Downtown has kind of been the end part of that, which is appropriate because we needed lighting in other parts of the city, but we need to make sure we have full lighting. And for those of you who haven't had an opportunity to walk down Peachtree Street recently, I would encourage you to take a stroll one day in between council meetings, just to walk down and look and sort of see where we are and get an idea of the kinds of things that I think as we get closer, we're going to want to improve. We have a great opportunity to show off our city at a fantastic time for the city. We're going to have this new hotel next to the World Congress Center. We're going to have the development at Centennial Yards. We have the Newport development. We have the South Side development. By this point, hopefully we'll have something going on at the Civic Center site. When you think about all of the development activities will likely be happening as we get to the World Cup, there's going to be a lot of things, a lot of opportunities for us to show off. There's going to be a lot of business opportunities, much as there were in the Olympics. You meet so many people. We have a partnership with the Atlanta Business League, and I was just at one of their meetings the other day, and I was listening to folks talk about when they started their business, and so many of them started their business during the Olympics. Because it provided an opportunity when you've got that many people coming into town. And when you say, well, gosh, what kind of business is that going to be? Think about yourself when you travel, all of the interactions that take place when you get to an airport, when you go through security, when you land, you take transportation, you go to the hotel, you go out to eat, you buy merchandise, you go to events, there are catering, there's decorations, events at the convention center. All those things are run by companies, and they're mostly small businesses. Our industry is mostly driven by small businesses, which is why our industry is so important, because it provides them a steady income, because we have conventions, as Mark told you, almost every 10 days here in the city. So we're going to be ready when it comes. I have some anxious nights occasionally, wishing that FIFA would go ahead and give us the date so that we could get more deeply into the planning. But because of the experience that we have in all the big events that we have, I know we'll be able to close that gap, very quickly. So the city's going to be in great shape. We're going to make sure that it shows really, really well, and that it creates all the opportunity post-event that occurred at the Olympics. So with that, Mr. Chair, happy to take any questions anybody has to have.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation. Like I said, it's the first time y'all been before us, but I know it won't be the last.
Happy to come back anytime.
Yeah.
Most of the time we have a good news stories, and today's been a good news day. So.
Yes, and I'll say famous last words too. We might not always have the cheerful pickleball folks here with us. Just a couple of quick questions before I turn it over to colleagues. The first thing that comes to mind with regards to the World Cup is the fact, back when we had ACOG, back when the Olympics and all the infrastructure that you mentioned before, just the amount of coordination across different governments, different jurisdictions. I don't know if we're at that level yet, or if the intention is to get to that point. Do we have to bring Billy Payne out of retirement to come back?
I wish we could.
What are we? I'm just curious. What's that infrastructure?
Yeah. So the way it works, but it will work specifically with the city. And the county and the state is as we get to the specifics and we're really down to the tactical executions, we will then have this organizing committee, which will have members of the city, members of the state, and representatives from the county as well. And what those meetings, so what might typically happen in a meeting like that is we're worried about traffic congestion downtown. And the city folks will say, hey, we'll take that, we'll work through that. We could have a security issue that maybe the county's going to be involved in. If we needed the Congress Center is owned by the state. If we had some kind, and I don't know what it could be, but some kind of issue with the Congress Center that required state action, the person in the state would sort of take care of that. So it is what I can tell you is it is very tightly coordinated. And let me give you two examples. You think about the 2013 Final Four, which is probably the best Final Four they've ever had. We had 3 events in the park, 40,000 people every night. We didn't have one incident, knock on wood. Thank you. The Super Bowl 2019, if you remember, we had great weather that week, which was very helpful. But again, 100% complete execution. No security issues, got people in and out, no complaints about the city, plenty of places for people to eat, plenty of service. And so that's how we will manage this as well. It will be very, very tightly. What we've learned over the years is over-communicate. We want everybody we need at the table so that everybody can execute their piece. When they do their piece flawlessly, the whole city does well.
Yeah, and I appreciate you that dovetailed in there, because one of the things that I am interested in is how can we promote the city in its entirety when we have these events happening. I know a lot of the work y'all are doing, and there's most of the hotels in the city are in downtown or in midtown, in these very dense areas. But when we think about where Atlanta has a brand identity that includes communities in Southwest Atlanta, Southeast Atlanta, what can we do to better promote the entire city? And I don't know if y'all are having those sorts of conversations with the hotels and letting people know about some of our legacy businesses that we have that are institutions in their own right, but maybe not necessarily right in the heart of downtown or across the street from Centennial Olympic Park, but play a strong role in who we are as a city. One of the things that I introduced last year was an ask from Invest Atlanta to help develop a legacy business proposal or plan that hopefully could be operationalized to allow for you all to say, hey, this business has been identified as a legacy business. Let's make sure people know about the beautiful. Let's make sure people know about Busy Bee Cafe, and figuring out how to include that include that in your like brochures or any sort of marketing. But can you talk a little bit
Let me give you,
how y'all currently doing that?
just a handful of examples. When we do big events in the city, and I've been involved in them for 20 years, sometimes running them, sometimes just in a lot of different ways. And the one thing that I've always pushed, and we now push as a city, is we want the event to benefit people who don't have a ticket. And so, for instance, when we had the Final Four in when I ran the Final Four in 2007, we had a program with the Atlanta Public School System. They all did their renditions of the Final Four artwork. We put all that artwork in all the hotel rooms across downtown. We had a ticket program. Somebody was talking earlier about we had some ticket opportunities for those kids. We had some awards programs. We gave out jerseys and things like that. When in 2013, we did a lot of work in the neighborhoods. So you got 4 teams. They have a lot of alumni. Rather than having all those people at bars and clubs right downtown, we tried to spread them out in the neighborhoods, so we push people back. In general, with our convention business, but specifically for sporting events, when we have people come, we always make them aware of all the things that are available in the city, across the entire city. Because one of the ways that we create the economic impact is pushing visitors outside the city into the neighborhoods. And if you go on our websites, you'll see a lot of neighborhood activities listed, particularly to the time when folks are here. Because we want everybody to be able to benefit from the economic value of having this huge compression of people in the city. And many times in sporting events, and this will happen in the World Cup, if you might play a game on Tuesday and another game on Friday. That means you got 2 or 3 days where you could explore the city. And so we push a lot of content out to people to encourage them to get out, and a lot of it's neighborhood driven. We encourage people to get out into the neighborhoods. That's what people are interested, travelers are interested. They want experiences. They want authentic local experiences. And so we promote a lot of that and transportation opportunities and things so people can get there, they can get back. And it's all about, people spending money, right, all across the city.
Do y'all have folks from those communities helping y'all curate those experiences, or is that something that is?
We do. I will tell you, our marketing team drives most of that, but they work, probably the best identity of that is we have hundreds of local bloggers. So in other words, we don't write all the content. We have people from the communities or the organizations or people who, as a career, write about different parts of the city, and we curate all that content on our website so that if you're, whatever you're interested in, we put you to those blogs so you get people who actually had that experience, went to that place, ate at that restaurant, whatever it is. So they sort of get the authentic communication about what that's about. And as we know, people want to go places that somebody's endorsed in some way. And so that's probably the biggest way that we do that. So yes, we do work with all the local folks because we're trying to drive stuff to their venues and their restaurants and things. But particularly, I would say that a lot of that's blog driven.
Okay. And then before I turn over to colleagues, this is my last question. Yep. One of the things that I always find fascinating and funny and irritating is when I see MARTA buses wrapped with visit DC or visit North Carolina or billboards from other cities, promoting. I get, I'm curious what we're doing in maybe other parts of the country.
But we're irritating other people. We don't promote Atlanta because we're already all here, right? And we actually, I will say though, one of the interesting things about our website, we noticed once we first started in 2008, we had a huge spike on Thursdays. And we were like, most conventions are leaving on Thursdays. Well, what was happening is local people come to our website and see what's happening on the weekend in the neighborhoods. And so we actually do get a big spike from local folks. But our advertising kind of works in two pieces. As Mark mentioned, most of our business, the 80-20 rule is convention business because you can get a convention with 60,000 people. They come, they eat, they stay, they spend, they buy merchandise, they fly in, they fly out, and they go home. Tourism is a little different here because most people, although I'm also a local native, most people are from somewhere else. And so when your friends come to visit you, where do they stay? They stay at your house. So we don't get the hotel motel tax. Now they'll take you out to restaurants, they'll take you to the aquarium and Center for Civil and Human Rights and places like that, but most of the activity occurs in your home. So we still promote tourism, and we have a strong tourism business from Memorial Day to Labor Day. But in general, most of the money is made on convention business. And one other thing I just wanted to say back to an earlier point you made about spreading the wealth. Airbnbs, which I know you all have spent a lot of time with, are becoming a significant part of staying. So when you think about particularly something like the World Cup or Super Bowls or even big conventions, a lot of that, because we only have 13,000 hotel rooms downtown, a lot of that business is spreading that out now to Airbnbs in the neighborhoods around downtown. So that's another way that the economic value gets pushed out.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. All right. Up next is Councilmember Westmoreland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Pate, for coming.
Thank you, buddy.
One World Cup related question that might turn into a request. Building off the questions that Councilman Dozier asked, one of the departments here at the city that it seems like it would make sense to engage if they're not already is the Department of Parks and Recreation, since this is a recreation-themed event. And so I'm curious either how, and I know Commissioner Cutler was here, I don't know if he's, okay. I'm curious how that department is currently engaged, and if not, how we might engage them in.
So they're not currently, so not to interrupt you, but they're not currently engaged. Typically, in this, we can make any decisions we want. So historically, what has happened is that either the chief of staff or maybe the COO would be the first person that would sit on the organizing committee. And then that person would be in charge of bringing the rest of the city, the necessary city organizations underneath.
Got it.
Well, in fact, we were just talking about this morning, as a matter of fact, that, and the mayor, kind of at the end of the day makes that decision. We take, whoever and however many people he would like to have. So that's typically how that would work, and then typically that's how Parks and Rec or anybody else would kind of get involved.
Sounds good. We know how to handle it from here.
Okay.
Hey, Councilmember Westmoreland, Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Thank you so much for being here. I really thought Councilmember Westmoreland's question was, are you working with Parks and Rec to figure out how to put more pickleball in your hotels? But glad there was asks about coordination for future events. I did just want to ask, so one, happy to hear about the promotion of local small businesses with the upcoming larger events that are occurring. Is there an opportunity for district members to connect with you on promoting our businesses and figuring out how to?
100%. Would love that. We want more local businesses. I will tell you that, I think I mentioned this earlier, one of the partnerships we have is with the Atlanta Business League, trying to get more folks who aren't involved in our business today involved in our business. Think about like transportation companies that might be a limousine service that might not necessarily think about conventions as an opportunity. And a lot of times what is happening now in our industry is convention meeting planners who run the convention are saying, can you get me a list of minority vendors? Because they want to do more minority business. And that's where we have this partnership with the Business League now. And so their members, based on their different areas of business, we present that to meeting planners. But we're always interested in ways to get more businesses involved. Again, we have a convention almost every 10 days. That's a lot of people spending a lot of money in a lot of different ways.
Yep.
Particularly for small businesses, it's a good way to start a business, and it's a good way to sustain a business.
That's great to hear. Two questions. One, I wanted to ask how you define minority business, because one of the biggest complaints I've heard from minority business owners is that the categorization of minority businesses don't always emphasize people of color that own small businesses. Oftentimes it can be outcompeted by white women.
Okay, so we separate those.
Yeah, okay.
So I would say it's kind of Caucasian, women, non-Caucasian.
And then I'm certain LGBTQ plus businesses are also factored
Yes,
in there.
but they don't always self-identify, so
No, they do
it's
not. There's
hard,
not some that are obviously
yeah.
LGBT.
But believe me, in this city, we have significant representation, I'm sure.
Fantastic. I would love to find out how to better connect with you on some of this.
100%, I'd love to do that.
I'm fairly certain that some of the not all of our districts have business associations. My district is lucky enough to have 3, but some of ours miss those. We have a list of small businesses from,
Right.
thankfully, that we've worked with Invest On to catalog in our entire district. So I would love the opportunity to find out how to better connect some of those.
I will follow up with you and come see
sounds-
you. How about that?
That sounds great. And I also wanted to ask, if there be any opportunity, one of the biggest pieces of feedback I've gotten from my district is around senior programming. And if there's an opportunity to coordinate with you all well ahead of large events, because we're talking years out, obviously, to discuss senior programming as well. So how some of our seniors can take advantage of that have legacy residents.
Very happy to do that. I will be honest with you, that's not necessarily something that's on the radar screen.
Understood.
So fair point, and happy to engage on that.
And understanding that that's not something that has been done, but I would love the opportunity to discuss what that is, and understand that I would commit to you all organizing a majority of that to get it off the ground. Since it hasn't been done before, I would just love the chance to work with you on a project like that. And also, I mean, this has been mentioned, was mentioned by Councilmember Dozier, Chair Dozier, with our last speaker, is I would also love the opportunity to discuss things like multimodal connectivity and just sustainability plans. Just for full transparency, we've been doing a lot of work around the heat island effect and our heat-related deaths in downtown areas. And given all the work you all do and everyone that comes to our downtown area and how we want to keep that going, would love to discuss sustainability plans and how to move forward.
And so absolutely happy to do that. Just to let you know, as you can probably imagine, that is one of the issues at the forefront of a lot of major conventions. When they come, they want to understand our sustainability plans, which we actually have a pretty good story to tell there. So happy to follow up with you on that and talk some more about that.
And my last question was looking at the page on the year-end hotel occupancy. Glad to see there's been some rebound since the pandemic. Was curious as to what you all thought was causing lower rates than you had in 2019.
Lower
Occupancy rates.
Oh, well, it's just convention, the number of conventions is coming back. The attendance per convention is still a little light.
Okay.
A lot of that is, in many cases, driven, as Mark mentioned, by international travel. So we do have a lot of conventions where 15 to 20% of the attendees are from outside the country. As Delta is adding more flights, and they're expected in 24 to basically be back to their old international schedule, we expect to close that gap. And I think by the end of 2024, we're going to be pretty rocking along. Now, I will say one thing about occupancy that you have to understand. We have added about 4,000 hotel rooms since COVID. There was a lot of construction going on when nobody was paying attention. And so we've got a lot more hotel rooms. And so I'm not sure occupancy itself will get back to high 70s. But if we get to low 70s, everybody's going to eat really well.
Understood. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Look forward to.
I will follow up with you and come and see you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bakhtiari. Councilmember Amos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pate, thank you. Your words are encouraging, but unfortunately, it's the ones who came before you whose actions we're actually watching. Just a little background. Atlanta native, born, raised, still stay right there in Vine City. The Mercedes-Benz, the new Signia Hotel, Georgia World Congress Center, C, is actually in District 3. So all of your big events that we throw is very personal. I need your help.
Okay.
I need your help to carry my message, same message I'm gonna ask for Mr. Poe at the Congress Center. The traffic plans, they suck. There's no other way to put it.
I'm not going to argue with you there. Around big events.
Because once we get past Northside Drive, it's like the Convention Bureau and everyone involved forgets that our communities is on the other side of Northside Drive. I've been through several Super Bowls, the Olympics, and several Freaknets, and we have never shut down Northside Drive except for a Super Bowl. Literally built a wall. World Cup, that can't happen. It simply cannot happen. Community engagement and big events. I am looking at the Atlanta FIFA Human Rights Assessment and Stakeholder Engagement Report that speaks of all the wonderful things that the city and everyone who's putting on the World Cup is going to ensure to happen, that the least of these is taken care of. Where's that conversation at now?
I'm not aware of the report that you just signified. And what I will, a lot of that gets into tactics, which is not I don't have an answer for you, but rather to say, we just haven't gotten that far along. I will definitely take your message. I will definitely tell you that at least since I've been involved, a lot of what I push is how do we spread the economic value across the entire city. And I've given you some ideas of some things that we've created to try and push that out. I'd like to sit with you and hear some more specifics about the issues around Vine City. I understand the traffic. I've been here all my life. I get it. I mean, I think there's a psychology about Northside Drive. It could be the Grand Canyon, right? I mean, even though it's whatever it is, eight or 10 lanes that you cross, psychologically, it's hard to get people across there. And so then you got to create things to do that, right? So that appointment viewing, as I call it. I think getting restaurants, event venues are two kind of easy ways to do that. When we had the Super Bowl in 2019, we used 104 event venues across the city because you have so many people and we don't have a lot of event venues. And so that's where, oh gosh, I just forgot the name of it. The event venue over there by Georgia Tech. any rate, when they first came to build that, they came and talked to me about that. And one of the things I told them is, look, we need more event venues. If you build a venue, we can put the business in there. Vine City is 10 minutes from the Georgia World Congress Center, if that. So close proximity helps us there. But some of what I think we need to do, and again, meeting with business people and entrepreneurs, is to talk to them about what the opportunity could be to create some of those. So I'm very happy to talk to you about that. I will tell you that that gets discussed. But I will take your message to the group.
And we're on the same page already, because just as it takes the city time to get ready, it's going to take my mom and pop stores a little longer to get ready as well. So we probably need to hold that conversation of what it looks like before the city gets to that conversation.
And one of the things I'll say about working with the Atlanta Business League that I've learned that we're trying to do a better job of is helping people understand our convention business is sustainable all year long. It's not like we have a convention April 1st and another one May 3rd. We have something regularly. So if you're a small business that can participate in our business, there's regular opportunity there.
And last but not least, I mean, watching this administration, this council, and actually our business community, things are changing.
Without question.
It is changing, and I really believe we are the group of people to get it right in the World Cup 2026. If we could have that same emphasis that is put on Peachtree and Piedmont, put on Boone and Lowry and the streets of Castleberry, I think we will actually get it right. I know we will get it right. So, like I say, it's not you. It's the ones who have come before us. So let's carry this message and get it right. And then on your presentation, November, National League of Cities will be here in the city of Atlanta. Add that. That's an opportunity for us to show the leaders of the nation how Atlanta influenced everything. But we got to tell people it's coming before.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, don't worry. We have that. Believe me, we're doing a lot of work. It's a great opportunity to show the city off.
Exactly. Thank you for what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Amos. Councilor Lewis.
I want to say thank you for coming today.
Thank you, buddy.
It was good actually meeting with you before here to hear some of these plans and to understand the traffic plans that you've been putting together downtown that we want to see on the south side of the city, because Northside Drive goes down to Metropolitan Parkway.
Right. Yep.
And as we grow, as we prepare for the World Cup, as we build, I think a way to spread it out is to invest on the south side. Everyone who touches the city of Atlanta, if you fly into this city and you fly into Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson Airport and you want to come into the city, you have to go through District 12. And so that means you take a ride up 85 and 75 to get downtown. There is so much potential and growth there. And I know we talked about that before. I just want to always uplift that to you. That was the only thing I want to make sure I uplift to you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, the great thing, we're the 4th largest convention city in the country. The great thing about having a strong convention and visitation business is it creates the opportunity to have the businesses and things that you're talking about.
And I would say we're 4th because of that investment we could grow.
Absolutely.
When you think about riding 85, 75 from the Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson to downtown, you don't see any of the, no place for folks to go. We think about the DNC, they actually used the reason of our hotel system in the city of Atlanta. They said it, of one of the reasons that they didn't come. And so to prepare for the next couple of, we're building Rome right here in Atlanta. And so to prepare as we're building Rome, I think we need to spread out a little bit.
Thank you. Council President Shipman.
Thanks for being here. Always good to see you. Couple of quick questions. One, who are our competitor cities right now, and what are they doing that we should be mindful of?
Well, Orlando's always a big competitor. They've got their own political opportunities down there that actually, we're benefiting some from. But what I would tell you is if you've been down to Orlando in the convention center, I always, when I'm in another city, I get out and I walk around. And, what I do feel like in Atlanta is that in many ways the business has come back more quickly than the city was able to come back. And a lot of that, I think, is driven by the office occupancy. So we need more restaurants downtown. But I understand a restaurateur that says, if I can't get lunch and I can't get happy hour, the convention business does come every 10 days, but then there are 10 days when, there are 4 or 5 days when it doesn't come, right? And so I think we've got to, and I know there's a lot of plans to up the residential and all, which will be helpful. We've done an excellent job of improving the police presence downtown. Some of that I know had to be moved to Buckhead to handle the Buckhead issue, which we were 100% supportive of. But now that has mitigated somewhat, I think we're starting to see more activity downtown. One of the reasons we put those 2 events on your thing, ASAE and GBTA, is events like that, when we have our customers in town, we need to make sure that we're flawless. And we work very well with security, with all the security folks. We have plenty of time to communicate to everybody. We have great relationships with law enforcement, and they're huge fans of our business. But we have to just maintain vigilance. It's just as Councilman Lewis was talking about, he's keeping that on my radar screen. We got to keep our foot on the gas. And so, again, I think we've got to, we could probably pressure wash the streets. We could improve some of the lighting. There's some sidewalk stuff that needs to be improved. A lot of it is just, look and feel. Chicago's a big competitor. I don't understand, because 3 months out of the year it's under 50 feet of snow. I don't know why people want to go there, but nonetheless, that's a very attractive city that we compete with a lot. Nashville is really beginning to hurt us at the lower end of the business, and and Nashville is, their downtown is 5 streets, so it's very compact, and they've got music, and if you like country music, then you like Nashville. So we have some things like that. What we are is a business city. You can get in, you can get out, you can get downtown in 20 minutes on MARTA. There are nonstop flights all day long to whatever city you're coming from. So logistically, we're almost unbeatable. And that's, a lot of what we sell. We have a great arts community that's underappreciated. We have a great restaurant community that's underappreciated. We have to do a better job of promoting those to people when they come into town. And a lot of what we've done there, and I told you all about this, is we're trying to push people more into the neighborhoods. But we really like, Mark and I were just talking about this morning, we really like where we are. When you think about just infrastructure-wise, how great the city sets up, we don't have a lot of issues that some other cities are facing with visitors and tourism. Think about like San Francisco and places like that. And so we manage it very well. And I'm going to jump in on Councilman Amos's point, because it is true. This mayor and this council are the people who can get it done. We feel it in the industry. We feel it in the business community. And you all have always been great partners, but I know that your questions and your interests are sincere, and we're not 100% perfect, but together we're gonna keep this train rolling down the track.
One more question and then one comment. The question is, during the Olympics, as you remember, a lot of people left the city for 2 weeks.
Yes,
and they went other places, rented their house, or just left. Do we have any notion of whether or not people are going to have, residents are going to have the same sort of idea? It's a month long, right? So it's different than the
But it depends.
2 weeks.
I mean, it is a month long. The whole event is 6 weeks long, but it depends on what games you get and when you get them. So, I mean, that's why, I told you if FIFA could go ahead and let us know, then we could be farther along in our planning. I think 2 things are going to happen. One is I think we're going to be much smarter about telling everybody, don't come downtown, traffic's going to be terrible, right? I remember, those of us who lived here, that was the message for a month. And guess what? Nobody came downtown.
Right.
So we're going to be smarter about that. The second piece of that is Airbnb is going to be significant, because there are going to be people all over the city who are going to have an opportunity to cash in, much like they do in Augusta for the Masters Week, right? And so that will take, but I'll also remind you, the compaction downtown, the number of people that are going to be downtown is going to be in the millions of people. So it's not like a 60,000 person convention which fills up all the hotels. This is going to be a lot bigger. And this is one of the things that worries me a little bit is I'm afraid people don't understand how big this thing's going to be. And we've got to do a better job educating people on that. But so I do think Airbnb will play, and the other rentals will play a big part, but a lot of residents are going to do well off of that. So I also look at that as great economic value. But I don't think it's going to take anything away from the hotels. I think downtown will be very vibrant. We need to get some more restaurants downtown, and we will by the time we get there. And then, if we get some of the other development where we can get, some more evening activities and things like that, that will all, enhance the experience. And again, I think with 3 years to go and people seeing what's coming on the horizon, I think entrepreneurs will take care of some of that.
Just to comment to my colleagues, this is probably something as we look to the rewriting of the short-term rental licenses, a carve-out or something around this, because we're going to get probably a lot more demand within a very short amount of time. It's going to want to rent, and we need to think about from a regulatory standpoint, because I know we've thought about limiting the number of licenses, and this is a unique situation, so just sort of something to keep in mind as we move through that. Quick comments. One, I've already reached out to 30 of the arts community institutions to put this on the radar screen. They've already started planning some things, so I'll make sure that they're in touch with you and your marketing. The other is, I think this is a unique opportunity actually to engage with diasporas of international communities that live here, right? I mean, given Atlanta, we're likely to get at least one, if not two, African teams. We're likely to get an Asian team. We're likely to get a couple of European teams. So I would encourage us to start reaching out to consul generals and different just sizable immigrant communities and international communities that we have. Because I can imagine that, you may have Buford Highway being as busy on some nights during the World Cup as Morningside because of who's playing.
And I think two places where that comes alive, one is the Sports Council is under the chamber.
Yep.
And the chamber has most of the consular relationships. And so, I don't know specifically what their plans are, but I'm sure it is tying in those organizations because they're obviously looking for business opportunity out of this as well.
But even Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and some of the other business organizations, I think probably we can start to engage back to that small business. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilman Lewis.
I just want to add in two quick things. Are we working with our partner cities to prepare? And what I mean is College Park, South Fulton, our partners to the north, because they do have a vibrant hotel industry, and this is going to be a partnership because, as you said, it's going to be enough for everybody to get some.
So we are working with the hotels because we have to get room blocks and we have to manage where we're going to get everybody. So that kind of happens through, we're in communication with hotels throughout the metro area on a regular basis, helping them understand the compression downtown that's going to throw business out. The engagement at the municipal level is likely going to occur once we know what we have and when we have it, and we get kind of the broader group around the table and then, because we'll be looking at opportunities and things like that and trying to push things out.
And the cities I would think about are the cities that use MARTA. Because if you think about Clayton County, College Park, Hateville, and East Point, they have a vibrant hotel industry. Because when we say short-term rentals and Airbnb in particular, from what I'm seeing, is my neighbors are getting put out their homes and their houses are turning into Airbnbs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I prefer we work with the neighbor cities to use the hotel industry that already exists to make sure that they're prepared for what's about to happen, because they've built vibrant downtowns as well. And so to see that partnership would be good. And also, looking at your presentation, I didn't see MARTA mentioned in. So we work with, and the reason why I said work with the cities that are on the MARTA rail line, because I'm thinking about the traffic. We can get people that if you're staying near the airport, you can take a quick taxi or a quick Uber if you want to do a shared ride to the MARTA train station and get right into the city fairly easy. So, and people in other cities are used to public transit.
Right.
And so I think that the presentation has to have MARTA included because that's a way to promote the public transit system here, and it won't be up. I mean, we know city residents don't use MARTA as much, but it will increase with those folks that are coming in.
Well, I will tell you, we're the biggest marketer of MARTA. If you ever hear me on the radio and TV before a big event, the thing I always tell people is, if you're coming downtown for Taylor Swift being the most recent one, take MARTA. And I'm a big proponent of MARTA, been riding it for 40 years. And so they are always a part of our communication plan. We just didn't have it in the deck because we were trying to talk about other parts of the business. But they never get forgotten because they're they're very important to us. Also, the other thing I would tell you about MARTA that you may not know, 60% of the people who work in our industry take MARTA. And so it's, and the reason I know that is several years ago, we were looking at cutting some routes and stuff, and I had to come in and talk to the MARTA board and say, before just understand the impact here. And so MARTA is very important in our industry, not only for our customers, but for the employees who serve them.
And kind of unrelated, but I wanted to make sure I ask this question. The traffic pattern in our hotel district currently, do you think that that's the current best traffic pattern, or do you think that we should start looking at different, because we've heard so many different things from so many different angles.
I will tell you, I'm not an expert on the traffic patterns. I usually don't have a comment on the traffic patterns. Typically driven by security and by getting people in and around the venues. But a lot of it is driven by security because they want to be able to get people in, get people out, be able to get emergency vehicles and stuff through. And so if you have concerns about that or you have interest in that, I'm happy to take that to the group. I'm happy to take those concerns or ideas or things to the group as we start getting into the planning phase. But I will tell you, typically with our group that sits around the table, even when we have the city and the state and everybody in, traffic patterns are usually not something that comes up. That falls, with one of the committees.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis, and thank you, Mr. Pate and Mr. Vaughn.
Thank you all.
And I'll just add one note on the traffic piece, just for your awareness, Councilmember Lewis. Central Atlanta Progress is right today undergoing a big transportation study particularly for South Downtown, but it includes Mercedes-Benz, it includes State Farm and Georgia World Congress Center to figure out how do we mesh tourism with the new residential developments that are coming, with the business folks that are downtown. And so more to follow on that, but I'll make sure you're aware of what that. Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you. Mr. Vaughn, Mr. Pate, thank you so much for coming
Appreciate
down.
y'all.
And
Thank
this
you
will be the
for all
last
you're
time we
doing.
see you. All right.
Thank you all.
All right. That takes us out of presentations and into our legislative agenda that's going to the consent agenda. Ordinances for first reading. Mr. Evans, please sound those captions.
Item number 4 is 23-01341, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee or the chief procurement officer or his designee on behalf of the city of Atlanta to acquire from the Conservation Fund approximately 1.89 acres of real property located at 123 and 145 Dearborn Street Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia, 30317, for the development as an addition to the City of Atlanta Park Kirkwood Urban Forest Reserve, authorizing the chief procurement officer or his designee on behalf of the city to execute all documents necessary to acquire the property, authorizing acquisition, due diligence, closing costs, signage, demolition, site stabilization, fencing, and other site development costs to be paid from the Park Impact Fee South account in an amount not to exceed $2,016,739.10, as indicated in the account listed below, amending the fiscal year 2023 general government capital outlay fund budgets in the Departments of Parks and Recreation and Finance, Park South Service District by transferring to and from the various accounts listed, waiving Section 2-1541D of the Procurement and Real Estate Codes of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, Article 10, and for other purposes. Item number 5, 23-01342, An ordinance by the Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into an amended and restated Atlanta Beltline Corridor lease agreement on behalf of the City of Atlanta with the Atlanta Development Authority, DBA Invest Atlanta, by and through its designated special agent, Atlanta Beltline, Inc., to include additional trail segments and uses of trails and to add provisions to facilitate the incorporation of additional trail segments being acquired by ABI into the leased premises and for other purposes. Item number 6, 23-0-1343, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation to accept a reimbursement grant from the Georgia Recreation and Parks Association in the amount not to exceed $185,200.00 in accordance with Section 2-910 of the Atlanta Code, and authorizing the amendment to the fiscal year 2023 intergovernmental grant fund budget to anticipate and appropriate, and authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Georgia Recreation and Park Association and for other purposes. And item number 7, 23-0-1344, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to charge to and pay from the Brownfield Revolving Loan Fund account listed herein pursuant to the intergovernmental agreement with the Atlanta Development Authority, DBA Invest Atlanta, authorized by Ordinance 23-0-1041 in an amount not to exceed $239,438.65 to continue the remediation of brownfields and for other purposes.
Thank you. Before we go to the next portion of the agenda, Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take a moment to note what a big deal it is for my district and for my team. Item number 4 for the first read on the Kirkwood Urban Forest, and I wanted to take a moment to thank Doug Voss and his team in Parks and Rec and the Conservation Fund and the Kirkwood Neighborhood Organization for their work on this. This preserve does not have an official opening at all, and also big thanks to the administration and to my colleagues for joining me in this. Because this is going to make a big difference for this neighborhood. This land took a lot of cleanup. It took a lot of work. We've been working on it for the better part of the year, and very excited to see that we are finally in the first read and that we are finally finishing the acquisition of this parcel.
Thank you, Councilmember Bakhtiari. That takes us to ordinances for second reading. Item number 8, please sound the caption.
Mr. Chair, there's a substitute in your packet.
Thank you. Motion to bring forth the substitute by Bakhtiari. I'll second. Please bring forth the substitute. Open the vote.
The vote is open.
All nay.
And the vote is closed.
All right, the motion to bring forth the substitute is carries 7 yeas, 0 nays. Now please bring forth the substitute.
This is 23-0-1330, a substitute ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to authorize the mayor or his designee or the chief procurement officer or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to acquire from the Conservation Fund approximately 0.76 acres of real property located at 3159 Benjamin E. Mays Drive, Fulton County Tax Parcel ID number listed here for the development as an addition to the city's West Manor Park within City Council District 10, authorizing the chief procurement officer or his designee on behalf of the city to execute all documents necessary to acquire the property, authorizing acquisition, due diligence, demolition, closing costs, and other site development costs to be paid from the Park Impact Fee West account, as indicated in the accounts listed below, in an amount not to exceed $387,281.38, amending the 2023 General Government Capital Outlay Fund budget in the amount, or in the Department of Parks and Recreation and Department of Finance Parks West Service District by transferring to and from various accounts listed, waiving Section 2-1541D of Article 10 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City Code of Ordinances and for other purposes.
All right, Deputy Commissioner Doug Voss with the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Thank you. This is a really unique purchase. It's 3/4 of an acre. It's at 3159 Benjamin E. Drive. It is at West Manor Park. And, you know, we talk about sometimes buying big parcels and smaller parcels. 3/4 of an acre is not a large parcel, but this is a very significant purchase. If you know West Manor Park, it's an excellent park. It's a fantastic park. It has a lot to offer, but it has a strange parking lot. When you drive in, you come down Benjamin E. Mays, you turn onto a little road called Shamrock to get into the back parking lot. If you've been there before, this is the parcel on the left. And so that will make this a contiguous park from that line, that drive, all the way to the rec center. So we're very excited about it. And what's also really exciting about it, it was brought forward to us by Miss Eunice Glover. I know many of you know Eunice, and the MPU was very integral in letting us know this parcel became available. Went to the Conservation Fund, and now we're buying it from them. So we're super excited. We have no plans for the parcel at this time, other than the house will come down, but we will work with the neighborhood to try to develop it. And again, sometimes parcels come in big or small, but this is a very important one. We're super excited about it for District 10.
Any questions, comments from colleagues? See now, I'll move to approve on substitute. Second by Westmoreland. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
And the item is favorable on substitute, 6 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
Item number 9, 23-01331, an ordinance by council members Jason Dozier, Jason Winston, Amir Faroki, Byron D. Amos, Liliana Bakhtiari, Alex Wan, Mary Norwood, Dustin Hillis, Andrea L. Boone, Marcy Collier Overstreet, Antonio Lewis, Michael Julian Bond, and Matt Westmoreland, authorizing the chief financial officer to amend the fiscal year 2024 general fund budget in the amount of $3,500,000.00 by transferring funds from the general fund uncommitted fund balance to the non-departmental general fund and for other purposes.
All right, colleagues, so this item is a paper I introduced last Monday. It's related to our Housing Trust Fund. If y'all may or may not have seen in the media, the proposed and adopted budget that was passed by council last week contemplates $8 million in the Housing Trust Fund. However, legislation introduced by my colleague, Matt Westmoreland, back in 2021, when the Housing Trust Fund was established, further contemplates that a 1.5% general fund obligation would be to the tune of about $11.5 million. And just recognizing how remarkable our economic situation is in the city right now, particularly with the size of our uncommitted fund balance, the size of our city surplus, the wonderful bond rating that we have. I felt that it was important to fully commit to our commitment towards the Housing Trust Fund, and this paper essentially adds an additional $3.5 million to the Housing Trust Fund from the general fund to allow for that full commitment, that 1.5% commitment to take place. I recognize that the city has done a lot of work around a new housing opportunity bond. We have a significant amount of money that we are raising from our philanthropic community, and those opportunities are amazing and great, but those monies dry up. And we need a replenishing, regenerating fund to ensure that we're fully committed to our affordable housing goals and priorities. And so the best way to do that is to ensure that we're fully funding the Housing Trust Fund. This paper is dual referred, and it will be discussed in further detail at the Finance Executive Committee tomorrow. And so I've had some conversations with the administration, with the Chief Financial Officer, and there is a substitute that is being worked to add some additional clarifying language and to ensure that some of the specifics of this particular paper are legal and meet the full needs of the city from a financial standpoint. And so recognizing there'll be some further debate tomorrow, I'll go ahead and move it forward without, forward without recommendation, so that we can have some further debate and discussion tomorrow. But I appreciate my colleagues' support in not only signing on to this paper, but their support today and tomorrow to make sure we can fully commit ourselves as a city to our city's affordable housing goals. Second by Westmoreland. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
This is favorable, forwarded with no recommendation. Thank you for the clarification. 7 yeas, 0 nays. Just a reminder, this is dual referred. This will be on the agenda at tomorrow's Finance and Executive Committee meeting. All right, next item.
Item number 10, 23-01336, an ordinance by council members Antonio Lewis, Michael Julian Bond, Matt Westmoreland, and Keisha Sean Waits, authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute an amended secured note between the City of Atlanta and Southside Medical Center, Inc., to forgive a portion of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Home Investment Partnership Program loan with Southside Medical Center, Inc. for the Legacy House Rental Unit Project located at 309 Mount Zion Road, in an amount not to exceed $125,000.00, and to amend the repayment terms of the home loan agreement to a period of 18 months, retroactively commencing June 1st, 2023, for the remaining loan balance in an amount not to exceed $125,000.00. All payments shall be made via ACH payments and for other purposes.
Thank you. And we have Genevieve Bell with the Department of Grants and Community Development. Good to see you. And if you could just tell us a little bit about the paper, and we'll go.
Absolutely. So this is a home investment partnership where we provided a loan to Southside Medical Center for the Legacy community. And we are looking to forgive a portion of that loan at this time, as they have met the affordability period as it relates to this loan.
Thank you. Councilman Lewis.
I want to say thank you to the mayor's office and thank you to the at-large council members who signed on this paper with me. This is an investment in affordable housing and keeping it there for folks who really do need it. And so I appreciate you all for pushing this paper forward, and I want to move this paper first.
Motion by Lewis, I will second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
Item is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item. That takes us to resolutions, item number 11.
Number 11 is 23R3756, a resolution by council members Liliana Bakhtiari, Jason Winston, Amir Faroki, Byron D. Amos, Jason Dozier, Alex Wan, Mary Norwood, Dustin Hillis, Andrea L. Boone, Marcy Collier Overstreet, Antonio Lewis, Michael Julian Bond, and Matt Westmoreland, urging the City of Atlanta to collaborate with the Metro Atlanta counties and their health partners to support access to abortion health care or health services and for other purposes.
Councilmember Bakhtiari, you want to make the...
Thank you. So just a quick note, the city was able to create the first abortion fund in the Southeast last year. This is something we seek to continue, but also hope that Metro Atlanta areas, especially the Fulton County and DeKalb County commissions, but especially that commissions that are charged with actual health maintenance as part of their charter step up and join us in this effort in continuing access to reproductive health care for all people since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So I'm excited that we're continuing this effort and continuing to ask our partners to help us carry that water. And I hope they will join us, but really grateful to my colleagues who signed on to this, and I move for approval.
Motion approved by Bakhtiari, second by Westmoreland. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
All right, item is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
That item is dual referred. It'll be its.
Oh, thank you so much. It's dual referred to, I turned the page. Where is it dual referred?
Finance exec.
I see it on my paper now. Thank you. It's dual referred to finance executive, so it'll be discussed at tomorrow's FEC meeting. All right, next item.
Number 12 is 23R3758, a resolution by council member Dustin Hillis authorizing the contribution of a total amount not to exceed $100,000.00 to Groundwork Atlanta to be used as matching funds for development of the pavilion at Lower Paul Avenue Park, authorizing the chief financial officer to make payment from the account number listed herein and for other purposes.
All right, colleagues, I spoke with the author and the councilperson for this district earlier today and support this, and I'll go ahead and move to approve. Second by Winston. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, items favorable, 6 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
Item number 13 is 23R 3759, resolution by Councilmember Dustin Hillis authorizing the contribution of a total amount not to exceed $500,000.00 to the Path Foundation to support projects in District 9, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to make payment from the account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Colleagues, likewise, I spoke with the council person. They are still working on a substitute that will help finalize some of the conditions of this donation agreement. However, recognizing the need to move this forward and the long recess that's going to be coming later next month, I will move to approve on condition of that substitute so that that can be handled at that next full council meeting. There was a second by Bakhtiari. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
Item is favorable on condition of substitute. All right, that takes us, well, 6 yeas, 0 nays. That takes us to item number 14.
23R 3804, a resolution by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation to accept an in-kind donation from the Savannah College of Art and Design to provide creative resources to assist in the contextual research and development of concepts specifically towards the performance and ergonomic requirements to improve the Department of Parks and Recreation's labor force uniforms and for other purposes.
We have Deputy Commissioner Voss again to speak this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a really unique in-kind donation. I don't think I've ever been associated with one like this before, but SCAD is a really amazing institution and a unique asset to the city. They have come to us asking to be a part of their classroom project this fall. As part of a class project, they are actually going to try to design better labor force uniforms that are more ergonomic, more long-lasting, sustainable. They require an agreement from us, from the city, to be able to take this on. And so we are asking for your approval for this acceptance. Our commitment to this is just to allow them to talk to our staff and to tell them what's great about our uniforms, what's not so great, and our leadership team to try to develop something this fall. I'd love to bring it back to you when it's complete. Not sure what we'll see, but very exciting opportunity, and thanks for your opportunity to present to you.
Any questions, comments for colleagues? Seeing none, I'll move approval. Second by Winston. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
Item is favorable, 6 yeas, 0 nays. That concludes resolutions. We have no dual referred items, and we have no papers held in committees, and we have no other walk-ins. So then that takes us to general remarks. Any general remarks from colleagues? Okay, Councilman Winston.
Just one quick one. I know Deputy Commissioner Voss is still in the room, but Atlanta Parks and Recs will be down at South Bend Park in the Lakewood Heights community at 5 p.m. today, giving out free popsicles. So hopefully you can join us down in South Bend Park. So it's a nice hot day, and if you want a nice cold treat, please join us at 5 p.m. today in South Bend Park with Atlanta Parks and Recreation.
Hey, Councilman Winston. I have a few. The first one is just a reminder. We alluded to the next city council meeting a couple times in this meeting. Just a reminder, even though we typically meet on the first and third Monday of the month for full council, the next meeting is actually going to be on Wednesday, July 5th. Unfortunately, that is my birthday, but I will still be here doing the people's work. And so it's a Wednesday, so just be on the lookout for that. But it's with the July 4th holiday, Independence Day. We moved that meeting from Monday to Wednesday to accommodate people's travel schedules. The next thing, want to just for the committee, y'all should have received the email, but just a reminder, the folks at Westside Future Fund has offered the committee an opportunity to tour a lot of the work they've been doing in District 3 and District 4. That's next Friday, so just be sure to check out that email if you want to attend. please reach out to Mr. Evans, and we'll get that coordinated. And then finally, just a reminder, particularly for our District 4 residents, but especially for the city, because I know a lot of folks who come downtown have noticed a lot of the construction happening around the city. We have the City Department of Transportation is hosting I don't want to call it a town hall, but a community meeting about an update of what's going on with the repaving that's been happening around City Hall. It'll be across the street at Central Presbyterian, but it'll be at 6 o'clock this evening from 6 to 7:30. And then that presentation will be posted online once it's complete. But hope you come armed with questions so you can spare my inbox, because I keep forwarding them to ATL DOT, and I want them to be able to answer those questions as well. But I appreciate y'all. And with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn.